Chapter 551, Mib. Under Ryan's gaze, the guy who smashed the glass and rushed into the subway car quickly rolled up and stood up. After shaking off the glass on his body, he took out a document and walked forward. "Hello everyone, I'm a member of the Subway Bureau. Now I invite everyone to go to the front car. The circuit system is invaded by foreign objects. Foreign matter intrusion." Ryan and Hermione glanced at each other and saw their doubts. However, on a high-speed subway train, how could a normal person catch up with the subway train from behind and smash the glass into it? For security reasons, Ryan and Hermione simultaneously pulled out their wands and pointed to the place where the young black man had just rushed in. But the other passengers on the train seemed calm and still doing their own thing. "Hey, you guys, there is a foreign body invading," the young black brother shouted loudly, looking a little angry, and Ryan only found out that this little brother looked like Will Smith at this time. "It seems that I have watched this movie," and next a sound of metal distortion sounded while Ryan was thinking, and then the entire subway train's tail disappeared, and a large mouth with a circle of teeth appeared in it. Everyone's vision. In an instant, the whole car was in a mess, and everyone screamed and ran to the car in front. "Do you know you're going to escape? Don't run, sit down. It's just a 600-foot worm." The little black man choked, and suddenly he saw Ryan and Hermione standing in place. "Hey, you two, when this is not the time, you have to." He stopped at this point and looked at the scene in surprise. The two young men he thought were playing at the same time raised the small wooden stick in his hand and shouted at the big bug behind, "Stupefy!" Two red lights flew from the stick and hit the back. "Big worm!" The big worm screamed after being hit by the two beams, and then slowly closed his eyes to stop the chase of the subway train. "Oh, my God!" The little black man looked out of his eyes. "Wait, which planet are you from?" "I remember in New York. If you want to hold a powerful weapon, you must register, and I don't remember having you two in New York." "What planet?" Hermione was shocked by this question. She said seriously, "We are pure human beings." "Still British?" "I don't remember any British who could stun a big bug with a red stick." The black brother said, "I know that many aliens who have come to Earth like the culture of the Earth and are even obsessed with it, but not so much to your level. Probably because of the effect of the spell, the big bug didn't catch up." The train stopped after a while, and looked at the sign Ryan and found that they came to the 81 block subway station. The little black brother stopped chatting and said to Ryan, "I have some things to deal with first. You go to the subway. I'll to wait for me." After he finished, he walked to the car in front of others. "What did he just say?" Hermione asked strangely after the black man left. "Aliens, are we in a world of science fiction?" "It should not be, otherwise there will not be such an old subway still running." Ryan said, "Of course, this world and our world should be different. There is no such big bug in the subway as the normal world. But specific, I don't know what the situation is." When they went out, when the two passed the front door of the car, they just saw the black man holding a silver stick in his hand and said something to the people in the car. Ryan vaguely heard what kind of exercises. Always think this scene is a bit familiar. Lane thought, it seems to be a story in a science fiction comedy. Should it be called The Man in Black? But now is this the beginning of the first part? As he thought, the black man came over, and then took out an oval-shaped thing like a mobile phone to face them. Hermione was a little nervous, as if to raise her hand to attack him, but was held back by Ryan. Then she whispered into her ear, "Don't be nervous, this should be a networked camera phone. He may need to authenticate us." As it turned out, after the device-like instrument dropped twice, the black man said to Ryan, "Obviously you have not obtained the permission of Mib to live on the Earth." "Of course, I can understand the problems encountered by you alien refugees. It is likely that you are afraid to contact us for safety reasons. But I can tell you that the Earth is a safe neutral zone. You don't need to hide your identity. So I hope you now go to the MIB headquarters to apply for a permit to live in the Earth." "That, sir, you may have made a mistake." Ryan looked helplessly at the man in front of him. After confirming which world this was, Ryan suddenly judged that the black brother in front was the protagonist of the movie in black. "Agent, we are indeed pure Earth people. But we are wizards and come from another world." "Sorcerer?" Agent J looked at Ryan and looked at the wand they held in his hand. "I can understand that you may like the culture of the Earth, and may even think that you are the Harry Potter book." The wizard inside. "But what I need to tell you is that as an alien, you must go to the MIB to register, otherwise." Before he finished speaking, Ryan tapped the multifunction communicator in his hand with his wand. Then the multifunctional communicator turned into a little hamster moving his cheeks in his surprised eyes. "This is..." Agent J looked at the hamster in his hand in amazement. After a few minutes, he could be sure that he had not been hypnotized or saw the holographic projection. The young Asian man in front of him was really like he said is a wizard. "I think we can go out and find a place to eat and talk." More than half an hour later, in a restaurant, Agent J listened to Ryan's account of his identity and the reasons for coming here, to go to various worlds for technical and material exchanges. After the description, he sat dumbfounded for a while. After regaining his composure, they said to Ryan, "Well, although you are not aliens, and should not be malicious to us, but I suggest you go to our MIB headquarters to register, so that it will be convenient for you to come back later. Where are you? Ryan asked. An organization that theoretically does not exist on various occasions was originally established by the Federation, but now he should forget us. This organization is responsible for receiving refugees from other planets. Agent J said. Here a glance at Ryan and a www.mplnovel.com thought of the shock that he had just learned of Ryan and especially Hermione's name. Maybe there may be guests like you from other worlds in the future. It sounds very good. You can be regarded as the customs of the Earth, Lane said after a smile. So when is it appropriate for us to register? For these 2 days. I think you can't find a place to stay now. I can provide you with a place to stay. When I contact the headquarters and let them prepare the registration form for people from different worlds, I will accompany you personally. Go. Agent J thought for a moment. Will this be too much trouble for you? Ryan was a little embarrassed. No, of course not. Agent J shook his head. This is my duty in itself. Not to mention the reception of travelers I have never met before. I can get several days of paid vacation. After eating the last thing on the dinner plate, Ryan and they took a car to an apartment in New York. When the door opened, Ryan found that the apartment was tidy and neat, and all daily necessities were readily available. This is a safe house, and you can live here for 2 days. As long as you don't leave this place more than 2 blocks away. There are refrigerators for eating, and this. After he finished, he took out 2 silver ones. Something like a Bluetooth headset. You'd better bring this thing with you. I will contact you when everything is ready. Okay, thank you. We will certainly not be too far away from this. Ryan took over the 2 communicators and then said goodbye to Agent J, which also represented his life in New York in 2002. Chapter 552, True and False in the World. New York, the most prosperous city on the east coast of the United States. It has a series of famous attractions such as the Statue of Liberty, Central Park, Wall Street, Empire State Building, Times Square and so on. However, Ryan did not see any attractions in these 2 days, because Hermione learned of the existence of the book Harry Potter in the previous conversation with Agent J. So after settling down in the apartment, Hermione went to a nearby bookstore to buy videotapes of the 1st to 4th Harry Potter novels and the movie Harry Potter and the Magic Stone released last year. I stayed in the room and watched these things. Ryan found that Hermione was slow to see, and when she was watching, there were uncontrollable manifestations of death rules around her, such as a trace of black and red mist, or a place near the right-hand side of the desk she was sitting on. The potted flower's dying death force affected the withering of the next moment, and then a new bud emerged, and the process continued to cycle back and forth. Ryan started to feel a little nervous. After all, anyone who found his world was a story written by someone else would be confused. Fortunately, Hermione didn't get out of control like Ryan imagined the worst case. The influence of the materialization of death rules is controlled by her at most 1 foot away from her body. By noon the next day, Hermione finally finished watching the tape. She turned her head and said to Ryan, who was sitting next to him, "Why, there is no you in these stories." "Because I have a messenger like me. Even if I write it, it should be the same humane," Lane said in his heart, but he said in his mouth, "We have been to the world of Beauty and the Beast and the Lord of the Rings, that at that time, you should find that some parts of these worlds are not the same as the books we read. So I think there may be some differences between the story of another world and the real facts that may be circulated in some worlds." "I think so." Hermione nodded. "By the way, do you know the snake monster in the secret room and the diary of the mysterious human Horcrux?" Of course. I saw the old diary book at that time and wanted to give it to my father as an antique collection, but then later found the book wrong and gave it to the Principal Dumbledore. The principal has now destroyed the diary, and at the same time ensured that the basilisk would never come out to hurt someone again. Ryan explained, and he said to Hermione afterwards, "Hermione, I think you look a little bit after knowing this story. Do you think I'm too calm?" Hermione knew immediately what Ryan would ask. "When I first heard about this, I was also shocked. That's why I didn't speak when I was talking with Agent J, but then I was relieved. Because I have been with you since my 2nd year after going to the world of Beauty and the Beast, I have thought about this kind of problem. So after facing the real story, I think it may be that some information of our world has been received by the author of this world." After speaking, Hermione held up a book and said, "Besides, the content of this book and the actual situation are only very close. It should be a process of crossing different worlds, and this information has been distorted." Ryan nodded. If it was Hermione in the original book, she might be entangled with many things, but as she has traveled through multiple worlds, she already knows that some real worlds have a certain culture in other worlds. This situation in the product will naturally not be the same as some of the cross-flow novels that Ryan has seen in his previous life. After taking some characters out of his original world, these characters will see that the original book will be entangled with whether they are really fake. The following topics became a lot easier, such as Hermione likes the little girl who played her in the movie. She thinks that although the 2 people are only about 70% in appearance, the actor basically performed her temperament and characteristics. The door was knocked when 2 people started to discuss these light topics. Ryan opened the door and saw that it was the only person they knew in New York, Agent J. Aviv. But he didn't come alone. and behind him was an old man with grey hair, wearing a uniform of the post office and staring blankly at the two. "That's it," Agent J explained. "I went to the headquarters to do something with an old friend of mine today, just so you can stop by and apply for a temporary residence permit." Chapter 553, Agent K returns. "What? Have you returned to the room?" Agent J heard an incredible voice from the communicator. "You just ran out so close to Selena. I can only say that magic is really magical." "Well, now you just wait there and don't run around. My horse will come to pick you up." Ryan. After they waited in this apartment for more than 10 minutes, the door was knocked. Agent J stood anxiously outside and saw them talking after opening the door. "Today is simply too bad. The headquarters was attacked by Selena. Most of my comrades in arms have been controlled by her. As far as I know, her conspiracy is likely to destroy our planet. So can you help us?" "Of course." Ryan chuckled a little, then said self-deprecatingly, "I am very used to this kind of thing. Every time I go to a world, I am always busy to save the people in these worlds. I feel like a crow that mourns." "It's not your fault again." Hermione comforted. "I think you are a real savior, and many worlds would be worse without you. For example, in the world of the Song of Ice and Fire, if you are not an outsider, I can hardly imagine that kind of environment. There are others who can save so many people who are enslaved and bring them real dignity." "It sounds like you are much better than the students described in Harry Potter's book," Agent J said with a grin. "Of course, this is fine, to save everyone. The hope to save the Earth is much greater than I had imagined before." "Where are we going now?" Ryan asked after sitting in the car. "Find another memory recovery machine," Agent J said in his car. "My companion K retired a few years ago. For reasons of confidentiality, I deleted his memory. But now we need to let him restore his memory. This way we can figure out what Selena is going to do on Earth this time." "Conspiracy." "Now I only know the word satellite, and the evil queen of Selena is looking for this thing. But I don't know what satellite is at all. Only K knows this thing." "Well, I may not be able to help you elsewhere, but I can guarantee that we will definitely be able to help you when there is a need for fighting." Ryan heard his impatience now and comforted him. "Then thank you guys. I think we will definitely have a lot of fighting in these 2 days, and I will really need your help by then," Agent J said, shaking his head gently. Soon they came to an old friend of Agent J. After arriving in the basement, Lane looked at this memory restorer composed of a series of debris such as home computers, blenders, speedboat engines, bowling and other shocks. Ryan said to Agent J, "Our wizards have also studied soul and memory. It is a very sophisticated and complex field. But this machine is really—" "Of course I know that this thing is at most just putting together a pile of garbage, which is probably not easy to use." Having said that, Jay locked those fixed belts. The last joint fixed K after the machine was fixed. Lane shrugged helplessly. "But the problem is that this broken machine is now our only option. We can only choose to take a risk." After talking about it, he asked his alien friend to start the machine, and the machine shook wildly, as if putting people in a mixer. After an unexpected power outage, K flew out of the machine directly. But he seemed to remember nothing, and after bursting the head of the alien that would regenerate his head, he staggered towards the ground. "This broken machine is simply rubbish," I said earlier. Ryan hadn't finished talking. The walls on both sides of the basement collapsed, and 4 strange-looking aliens rushed in with guns. Quickly imprisoned fainted. These aliens have very low magic resistance, and they are easily subdued by a simple aggressive spell. Of course, this is also related to Ryan and Hermione's rich combat experience. In addition, this group of aliens had spent a lot of time in prison before, so now their skills are somewhat degraded. Just after all the alien criminals were knocked to the ground, Agent K finally recovered his memory and went down. But to his surprise, before, he thought that Jay could not cope with these alien criminals. Unexpectedly, I saw the 4 alien criminals all lying on the ground. Look. Chapter 554, Bug House. Ryan. After they arrived in an apartment by car, they opened the door and heard a loud noise inside. "Be careful." Jay just entered the door with a grunt, and Ryan only found out that the ceiling of this house was really very low at this time, so low as his neck was high. Ryan tilted his head and walked in and found 4 aliens inside. Insects are exercising, taking bubble baths, drinking and reading newspapers. "I'm sorry, MIB headquarters is occupied. We need your help," Jay said to this group of alien bugs and introduced Lola by the way. They seemed to be a group of worms, Lola said as she approached the scene. The bugs said happily after they heard it. "Hey, Lola, bugs will make you want to move." "Ah. They have always been like this. There is nothing malicious," Jay explained to Lola, and then turned behind. "By the way, there are 2 other helpers, from other worlds, to ensure your safety. Hey, you hurry in. This place is too short, but it is not suitable for our actions. I am a little worried that the group of alien criminals will come over. In this case, we have to make sure that we can fully exert our fighting power locally." Ryan beckoned to himself. "Say, as wizards, we have a way to solve this kind of environmental impact problem. Wait for us." After talking to Ryan, they each took out a thin glass tube and poured the bright green liquid into their mouths, and soon, in Jay's shocked expression, Ryan's 2 of them slowly shrank, and finally became 2 children aged 7 or 8. Oh, everyone present was surprised, and Jay asked directly, "Is this a potion for rejuvenation? The magic is really amazing." "No, Ryan, who became a child, explained with her one while shrinking her clothes. "It's just a shrinking potion. At best it makes people look young, and it has to be drunk once every half an hour. It's very troublesome. We only drink this pill for easy movement in such a low room." "Very good." Kay said that he had just walked in to see all this, and then turned his head to Jay. "Below we are parking illegally, so we have to hurry up. And I said earlier that they're experienced fighters. You still don't believe it? Now that the facts are here, the average person will not adjust his or her own right after discovering special circumstances. Practice makes you enter the most suitable state for combat." "Thank you for the compliment." Hermione nodded to Kay, and then looked around the room before turning to look at Jay. "I wonder if they are reliable, because we have also experienced many wars. One of the most important things in war is the comrades must be reliable enough." "Of course reliable. They have been our old MIB employees before, but recently they were suspended because they stole the goods in the duty-free zone," Jay explained. "But these alien bugs were all alone." After hearing this sentence, rebutted, "We are framed by stolen goods because Zed Super is afraid of bugs." "Okay, Laura is important to me." "No, it is important to us, so I hope you can take good care of her." At this time, Kay had left the room, and Jay told Ryan and the bugs before leaving. "Settling in. Relax. Trust us." Bugs and Ryan answered. At this time Lola stepped forward and kissed Jay, attracting everyone's coaxing voice. After finally telling a few words and leaving his communicator, Jay left here to prepare to get things with Kay. "Let's have fun together." A bug was invited by holding a turntable. Lola readily accepted the invitation, but Ryan and Hermione declined the invitation politely. When the insects began to play around, the two began to walk around the room, releasing defensive magic around the room. "Securely guard, drop enemy traps, all protect, mull expulsion." As the two men waved their wands to recite spells, one after another defensive magic appeared outside the wormhouse where they are now. "Oh, it's so cool." Just as they cast a spell, a small instrument in the room rang, and an alien bug ran to the instrument and gave them a thumbs up. "It's a very powerful energy wall. Although I can't see what it is for, but I can think from the energy reaction that you are very powerful. At least it's almost the same as the energy shield on a general civilian spaceship." "Civil spaceship?" Ryan felt a little dissatisfied. Although they used conventional magic just now, they were very attentive. In this case, he did not expect that the energy strength of the magic barrier he released was only equivalent to the energy strength of the civilian spacecraft. "Hey, what's your dissatisfaction?" The worm looked up at Ryan. "A wise creature only uses a small wooden stick and its own flesh, and the energy released is as strong as a ship that can hold 500 personal spacecraft flying faster than light release almost the same energy. Even if it is a top creature in the entire galaxy, the last time I saw a creature that can emit this energy is a 27 kilometers long side of a star. The giant cosmic octopus. You have such a small body with such a powerful energy. I don't know what you are dissatisfied with, because I have seen more powerful people, and the most powerful ones can even create a world. Compared with them, I really don't mean anything." Lane said, "Here in the world of the Lord of the Rings God." This sentence gave the worm in front a great shock. "Should I be fortunate that I wasn't born in that terrible world?" Insect made a shocked expression, and then took out a glass filled with champagne. "Life in that world should be dangerous. For our still happy life in these worlds that are always full of danger, let us have a toast." Ryan took a sip of champagne and took out a bottle from the space bag. "Try this, the finest wine made by the elves. It tastes really good," Worm said after drinking a glass of wine that Ryan poured for him. "It tastes much better than I thought." It seems that the world full of magic is not just dangerous. Just when everyone started chatting or playing around for more than half an hour, suddenly the communicator on Lola's body rang. It turned out to be a phone call from Jay, who was asking about Lola's bracelet now. Lola glanced at the bracelet and found it glowing. After hearing the news, Jay told Lola that they would come right away. "What's the matter with this bracelet?" Lola asked Ryan after the communication. Ryan waved his wand and checked, and found that there was a lot of energy gathered on the bracelet. However, because this bracelet is a purely technological creation, he can't see what is contained in it except that the energy in this bracelet is somewhat dangerous. Just when Ryan was thinking about whether to use the disappearance spell to get rid of this thing that looks like an energy bomb, he suddenly raised his head and stared at the door vigilantly. Because the early warning magic circle he had arranged responded, it means that someone is wandering outside. "You know that his magic has hidden this place. In theory, no one will wander around this place." Thinking of Ryan waving his wand here, a screen like flowing water appeared in midair. Soon a guy looking at the ghost head, wearing a red vest and carrying a big school bag appeared on this screen. He should be an alien criminal. If he guessed right, he followed Selena before. A worm holding a glass of wine walked over to look at the screen and said, "I just don't know that he's here. What are you doing?" "It's not a good idea to let him go outside. www.mplnovel.com. We'll just grab him in and ask and it won't be over." Lean walked to the door and pushed open the door, then stood behind it hidden by magic. The doorway released a coma curse to the guy who walked wandering in the corridor. The guy was directly stunned and then dragged in. After several guns were found and tied up, Ryan called Jay. "When will you come back?" Ryan said with some excitement, holding the communicator. "A two-headed freak has already found us here, and I am a little worried that there will be a set of attackers." "What?" Jay's voice came from the communicator, and Kay's whispered voice was heard beside him. "It seems that Frank was taken prisoner just now, and the news of Sata has been exposed. We need to hurry up. Are you all right?" There was a voice of concern from Jay in the communicator. "Relax. Everyone has nothing to do." Lane comforted, including Lola, "so you don't have to worry." "Okay, we'll be here soon." As soon as this sentence was finished, the communication was over. Ryan knew that both Jay and Kay would arrive soon, and that the decisive battle should begin. Chapter 555, Decisive Battle. Sure enough, less than 5 minutes after the end of the communication, Jay and Kay appeared at the entrance of the corridor, but as soon as they reached the entrance of the corridor, they turned around inexplicably and went downstairs. When Ryan saw it, he quickly lifted the magic around him and opened the door to call them back. It seems that the curse to expel Muzz is only effective against humans, Lane thought as he welcomed the two men in black into the door. But it's reasonable to think about it. After all, the person who invented the curse at that time couldn't think of a magical creature that can't be magic. There are aliens besides humans. This also reminds him to be cautious when choosing magic in different worlds, because the people who invented these magics are only invented for local situations, and it is impossible to consider the situation of the heavens and the worlds. Just like this expulsion hemp melon's magic was invaded by an alien mole. "Okay, Laura, we have to go now, leaving us only 39 minutes. Kay looked at the old-fashioned electronic watch on his wrist. Kesslina J interrupted Ryan before he finished. "It's okay if you come. After a while, you and Kay directly take Lola to do what you want to do. Hermione and I directly attack your MIB headquarters to buy you enough time. You must know that Selena is a notorious evil queen in the galaxy, and very few can beat her without the help of weapons." Jay kindly reminded. "You don't need to worry about this." Ryan gestured with his hands pressed down. "We are wizards. Fighting by ourselves is our advantage. After a while, you must use a lot of high-tech things. We don't understand it. I can't help you. It's better to let us go to a place where we can exert our strength." "Well, then we will act separately." "Jay, let's take Lola away now." Kay agreed with Ryan's judgment at this time, and immediately took Jay and Lola away. "Okay, save the world. It sounds really good. But why not bring us? The Bugs Commando is the real hero that can save the world." After Jay and Kay left, Bugs started selling their mouths. Ryan asked when he heard these words. "If you want to save the world, just go with us. We can take you directly to the MIB headquarters." "Awesome, let's go." After the worms took out their previously secret weapons from the room and armed themselves, they said cheerfully, as if they were going to a big party in a while. "Let's go and have a look first, and then take you after the investigation." Ryan shrugged. He remembered that in the movie, the worms were shaking like the chaff on the machine gun legs of the trash can robot, and refused to join the battle. In short, it is a group of kings of mouth guns. He doesn't want to bring this group of guys who may fall off the chain at any time to fight the enemy on a battlefield. After putting several defensive spells on himself, Ryan took Hermione directly to the hall of the MIB headquarters. When they arrived at their destination, they saw at the first sight in the middle of the hall that the evil alien queen, Selena, seemed to be walking impetuously, because the two-headed man she had just sent out to catch the light of Sata was not yet available. This gave her an unknown hunch. Before Ryan came, they had confirmed the identity of the enemy, so the first time the two men appeared in the Phantom to the MIB headquarters, Hermione used the death rule to launch magic to cover Selena. As the evil queen who has gone through hundreds of battles, Selena is certainly not the kind of rooster that is at a loss when faced with an attack. After hearing the noise behind her, she was shocked by the fact that someone could enter the MIB headquarters without any movement and touched behind her, but she was not shocked by this unexpected situation. Instead, he immediately transformed into a large group of living, twisted monsters composed of vines like tentacles. While transforming into a tangled mess, dozens of vines flew straight like arrows to the place where Hermione had just pronounced the spell. Two of the vines directly pierced the ground and made two deep holes in the ground of the alloy plate. However, these powerful attacks did not play their due role. A mist appeared around Hermione and completely enveloped it. Any vines that entered these mists were only contaminated with a little bit of mist. Breath of death immediately withered and rotted at a rate visible to the naked eye, and finally, a grey-black ashes formed on the floor. These snake-like vines are part of Selena's body. So when they were destroyed by the breath of death, Selena's body also felt great pain. This kind of pain is not just the pain of losing a part of the body. The death rule gives the other party the feeling of directly facing the death itself, which is extremely terrible for almost all living creatures. But Hermione manipulated the blood mist to advance very fast, and within a few seconds, those blood mist had completely enveloped Selena. In order to survive, Selena forced the huge pain on her body and soul to shoot the vines in all directions, trying to prevent the blood mist from further compressing in order to gain space for survival. and Hermione's blood mist, which contains the power of death, also showed some problems when facing a large number of vines. Probably because Hermione's magic accumulation was still lacking because of the short time. In order to wipe out the vitality of the flying vines, the blood mist had to stop 2 feet in front of the big vine that Selena had turned. Under the threat of a large number of twisted vines, Hermione put her blood to death fog to make sure that no vines can become trapped fish. Just as the battle between the two ladies stalemate, Ryan won a full victory over the trash-can armed robot. This machine, which has no soul and no magic defense, is completely incapable of resisting in front of Ryan. It was struck by 2 runes fired by Wand with his wand without even extending his weapon, and then turned into a pile of scrap iron. After finishing the trash-can robot, Ryan immediately stepped forward to support Hermione, who was caught in a tug-of-war. After launching several spells to test, he found that Selena did not possess any supernatural abilities. The reason why she saw with Hermione for so long is purely because her aliens have strong vitality, which can just be used to offset the unskilled blood mist of death that Hermione now masters. Since it was determined that the enemy was not as terrible as expected, Ryan immediately changed the plan. So he surrounded Serena surrounded by blood mist and began to draw runes in the air with her wand. These runes quickly turned into chains and wrapped around that layer of blood mist. What's this? Hermione could feel some other energy mixed into her released blood mist, but these energies were not used to attack the enemies that had been trapped in front, but rather a strong magic with control power. The power of restraint and control contained in this magic is not only aimed at the enemy, but also has the same effect on her death force in the blood mist. So Hermione asked curiously what the role of Ryan's magic was. I want to seal this monster. Lane smiled. Don't you think this monster looks like Xiaoqing? I want to seal it and try to see if Xiaoqing can evolve. As he spoke, the blood cocoon that had just formed due to the stalemate of Hermione and Selena quickly changed due to the magic of Ryan as a new force. The entire blood cocoon shrank inwardly after expanding a bit, until it was only after contracting to the size of a basketball that Ryan felt that the vines in the blood cocoon had begun to violently resist. It seemed that the previous smoothness was on the one hand because of the effect of magic, and on the other hand because Selena temporarily gave up resistance and tried to let Ryan take them lightly in order to fight back. But what Selena did not expect was that the principle of magic was different from all the attacks she had seen before. In this case, when she felt that everything did not change as she expected. If you wait any longer, you will not only have no chance to fight back, but you will die directly and silently. www.mplnovel.com immediately desperately decided to make a final resistance. Unfortunately, such resistance is in vain. Although the characteristics of this world make Selena very powerful physically, she has no control over the power of the soul. Soon, Selena's final counterattack failed, and the blood mist swallowed it completely. Just at the moment when the death force completely deprived it of its vitality, a harsh scream also swept the entire MIB headquarters. Let the MIB agents who struggled out of the pile of vines just because of Selena's death squat with their ears covered in pain. The soul of this monster is not weak, but fortunately it will not use this powerful force. Otherwise, we will definitely not defeat it so easily today. After confirming the death of Selena, she completed the magic minutes sighed softly. This is indeed the case. Ryan stepped forward and picked up a baseball-sized blood-red amber on the ground after reading the last spell. The amber was sealed with a strange green plant the size of a human thumb. We must be no better than the mysterious man in learning magic, so now if we want to truly win in war, I think that adventure in various worlds to obtain the magic of other worlds is our only way now. Maybe we can have powerful magic that can overcome mysterious people in other worlds against them. Just as the two of them discussed the way to defeat the mysterious man, the agents who were stimulated by Selena's last scream before the death and the aliens who were staying at the headquarters at the time finally replied and began to clean up. Endgame. Chapter 556, End and Trade. Just as Ryan and Hermione sat in MIB's boss Z's office and had less than half a cup of coffee, Kay and Jay returned from outside. It's just that Jay looks bad, and seems to have something sad. How's that? The light of Saturn sent away? Zed asked Kay and Jay after seeing open the transparent glass door of his office. Sure to send it away. Kay sat directly on the chair next to him, and then picked up the coffee and said, if we didn't send it away, our Earth would have exploded into a lot of cosmic garbage. Finally, Kay turned to look at Ryan and they said, thanks to your ability to hold the evil Queen Selena, otherwise I think we may not be able to send the light of Saturn away from the Earth before the time limit. After some kind of polite thanks, Zed started to negotiate trade with Ryan on behalf of MIB. But to Ryan's surprise, MIB is not very interested in the magic props provided by Ryan, but has revealed the ambitions of the technology of the radiating world. After 3 long days of negotiations, Ryan finally signed a thick technical trade manual with Zed and a group of MIB staff, which contains most of the technologies in the MIB and radiation world. Among them, the MIB naming requires the manufacture of multiple pharmaceuticals and most of the complete industrial system that radiates the world. Of course, as the corresponding trade goods, MIB also paid most of the technology they mastered. In addition, MIB is more willing to adopt fair trade methods when facing a friend who is willing to provide help and is not weak, so as to leave a favor in the future for help. Therefore, while providing enough technology to provide a large number of them, they also provide a large number of alien creation products that they have failed to crack the technology as compensation for the difference in value between the two parties' trade. Why do you want the technology in my hand? At the celebration dinner after the negotiation, Lane asked Agent K with a glass of champagne. In fact, Agent K is not very interested in this kind of activity, except that his partner J is now in a bad mood because of the broken relationship, so he pulled J and came to relax now. But now it seems that this relaxation effect is not good, because J is now drinking one cup after another. Indeed, your technology is more than that we have mastered. But for us, this seemingly backward knowledge is more important than the advanced knowledge in our hands now. K is the founder of MIB. Naturally, some inside information is known, and these things are not classified. So after I came to Ryan and asked about it, I began to tell a piece of history. The history of the establishment of MIB is not too long. In 1950, the United States established a severely underfunded organization. The only purpose is to get in touch with aliens. All people regard this as a joke, except for aliens. In 1961, humans in this world face-to-face communicated with aliens for the first time on the outskirts of New York. A total of 9 people saw these aliens on the first night, including Kay, who was sitting in front of Ryan, who was an agent of this organization at the time, and also presented the first bunch of flowers that humans gave to aliens. Fortunately, the aliens they met at that time were a group of refugees in the Milky Way, and the Milky Way in this world also has its rules. Under the proposal of this group of alien refugees, the Earth became a refuge for these homeless people. Since then, more and more alien refugees have arrived on Earth, until today's scale of about 5,000 people. At the same time, MIB also acquired a lot of technology from these alien refugees, and through these technologies, a lot of wealth has been gained, which has become independent from the United States, and has become an organization that truly represents humanity rather than a human country. Velcro, microwave oven, liposuction. These technologies are all obtained from alien technology, and we have obtained independent patents for their patents. But the role of these technologies is limited to this. K appears some helplessly took a sip of the champagne in his hand. The knowledge we got from the group of alien refugees is too fragmented and not systematic, let alone the technology from other civilizations is difficult to integrate into our human technology. And in the face of the arrival of aliens, we must have enough power to suppress them, because in the universe, evil aliens like Selena are not a few. We need to keep them out. They cannot be allowed to affect the lives of ordinary people. Under such circumstances, we have no choice but to learn bluntly all the knowledge we have access to in order to become stronger as soon as possible. But in this way, the biggest problem we face is these scattered, completely unsuccessful. The knowledge of the system can not only promote the development of human beings, but even destroy the research capabilities of human beings once they are known by outside humans. This is why we want to gain the knowledge in your hands. K is much more excited when it comes to this. Although the knowledge you have is not as advanced as the alien knowledge, these technologies are indeed fully in line with our human knowledge system. Even if the knowledge you bring comes from a strange world, there is no integrated circuit developed, and it is the use of tube technology to the extreme. But it is much better than those alien technology systems we have seen before. There is indeed a problem in that world. Lane nodded. A world that began to rebuild after its destruction. I am very grateful for the knowledge you provided. With this knowledge, I believe that the world will recover faster than before the devastating war. Ryan is not talking politely. The extraterrestrial technology he obtained from MIB has a way to quickly remove radiation pollution and treat malignant genetic mutations. After mastering these technologies, the speed of the Earth's recovery in the radiation world will be greatly improved. The plants of Lane before did help the recovery of the Earth's ecosystem, but the speed was still slower. I'm glad to help you. Kay also smiled when he saw Ryan's heartfelt thanks. Then he went on, as for your magic props, most of us can be replaced with some technology products. Another part of the powerful magic props require the user's own power as a condition for activation. We can't use them. Not to mention that these magic props simply cannot mass production. Under such circumstances we naturally do not need those magic props. Lane nodded when he heard it. Kay pointed out that the biggest problem with magic props, mass production, is impossible, and it cannot meet the needs of large-scale equipment. At the same time, for human beings in the technological world, there is no need to equip such things that are inconsistent with their own systems, otherwise they will not play a positive role, but will weaken the overall coordination effect. It is true, only what suits you is the best. Lane agreed with Kay's statement. So for this transaction, we each got what we wanted, which is indeed a very lucky and worthy celebration. So let's have a toast for the better future of both of us. After that, Kay raised his glass and touched Ryan. At this time, Jay also stopped drinking and danced with music. which seemed to be more spirited. It was much better before, and it should have come out of a broken relationship. The next day www.mplnovel.com Lane and Hermione started their trip in New York. After spending a week exploring the attractions in New York one by one, they left the world with several MIB friends. This trip brought 20 deviation points for Ryan, because this time the changes to the plot are not much. However, because the world in black is a world of technology, Ryan and they immediately went to the world of radiation after leaving the world, ready to see how the technology and various technological creations that were exchanged before were used by everyone. A very good thing. This is the evaluation of Knight, who is now the head of the college after Ryan came to the college. What you brought this time is very useful. Our previous plan to use 5 years to transform the glowing sea is estimated to be completed next month. It sounds great. By the way, have you researched anything about the alien technology creations I brought with me? Ryan nodded and asked. I'm sorry, this may take a long time. Knight shook his head. The technology of those things is not the same as ours. It may take a long time to get something from this. It's okay, I'm not here to rush you. Ryan comforted. The purpose of giving these things to you is just to give you some inspiration. I don't care no matter what you study. Chapter 557, Reward. In addition to most of the things that Ryan brought back after going to the Black Man world this time for research, he also brought back a batch of products mainly for his own use. For example, memory sticks and matching magic mirrors, small spaceships, and a large box of various weapons. Among them, weapons are the focus of Ryan's test this time, after dealing with some things in the world. The next day, Ryan and Hermione began to measure the effect of these sci-fi energy weapons on the wizard's magic defense. These tests were started on an open space, with several robot figures placed in the center of the open space. Ryan released a variety of defensive magic on their first puppets, and then began shooting with weapons in their hands like these targets that were released with defensive magic. In the experiment, they found that all weapons that use physical ammunition have very poor effects on the iron armor spells commonly used by wizards. Even just the magic released at the level of an ordinary Hogwarts graduate can block almost all live ammunition weapons, even with the most powerful Gaussian rifle. This is also expected. Ryan turned to Hermione. The wizards have been improving their defense against kinetic damage since the discovery of this magic, and it has not changed from medieval swords to today's firearms. That means that it is difficult for people who do not master magic to do any harm to wizards who want to harm them, such as Death Eaters. Hermione's expression also became serious. That's why all wizards see us as weaker than wizards. Individually, this is so. The wizard who masters the magic is indeed more powerful than the ordinary people. Ryan nodded slightly. But human beings as intelligent creatures have never become creatures standing at the top of the biological chain because of the strength of the individual. After he picked up the atomic No. 4 pistol and started shooting at those targets, Ryan clearly felt that after these energy munitions hit the defense on the target, the defense magic was quickly consumed. Sure enough, the effect on the energy attack magic defense is not good, Ryan said after directly bombarding the target in front of him with a portable 3-tube plasma's gun. This may be because magic is just a kind of use of energy, so in the face of energy attacks, it can only be resisted by pure energy consumption. It's not just because of this. Hermione also said that she repeatedly shot her atomic No. 4 pistol in her hand and knocked out her magic defense on a target. Accurately speaking, magic can use energy more efficiently. The curse. The book I saw in the library recorded the earliest appearance of the curse. At that time, the curse was very long, and it was also very rough. It can only block some swords or bows and arrows. A projection attack like a javelin. You mean, this curse was only used to prevent ordinary people from attacking at the earliest? Ryan asked in surprise. He hadn't read such books before, so he really didn't notice this. Yes, Hermione said, raising her eyebrows with a little excitement. She didn't have many chances to give Lena a lecture. So this time, after discovering that Ryan had unknown knowledge, he naturally began to explain it happily. You need to know that in the early history of the magic world, the wizards lived with ordinary people, and the battles and conflicts at that time were mainly concentrated between the wizard and the mole. In this case, the iron armor curse like this, the magic that can attack ordinary people, is naturally invented as one of the magics commonly used by wizards. But then the conflict between Muz and wizards became bigger and bigger, and even eventually turned into a war. Due to population problems, wizards, at least Western wizards, chose to close and hide themselves. At the same time, the signing of the International Confidentiality Law confirmed this matter. Speaking of which, Hermione took the water from Ryan and drank it. Then there is the conflict between the wizard and the conflict between the wizard and other magical creatures, right? Ryan asked after she finished drinking the water. Yes. The next is our focus on the history of magic. In those wars, the wizards established their dominance in the magic world. It must be said that these wars are indeed cruel, but the same also promoted the development of magic. The same is true of the iron armor curse. The magic curse that can only resist physical attacks is not very good when facing other creatures, so the wizards have invented more defensive magic. However, too much defensive magic has caused serious confusion. It is difficult for ordinary wizards to accurately identify the attack magic and choose the corresponding defensive magic when facing an attack. So under the research of a large number of magicians, this kind of the armor curse that can directly defend against various magic and physical attacks was invented. So that's why the iron armor curse doesn't work well when facing these energy weapons. Ryan went on to say, because the wizard's magic is not static, it changes with time and circumstances. They have never seen such an energy weapon, and naturally there is no way to make targeted improvements to these magics. This is the conclusion drawn through experiments. Ryan found that the iron armor skillfully arranged the magic to focus on the defense against magic attacks and physical attacks. In this case, users only need to pay not too much magic to achieve near-perfect defense. However, the elaborate magical structure researched by such a thorough process makes it difficult for Ryan to improve the spell at the current level. Even so, in preparation for improving the spell in the future, Ryan and Hermione spent 3 days blowing up nearly 100 targets and collecting enough data. In addition, Lane also gave Xiaoqing the amber that had been made by alchemy and sealed the prototype of Selena. Xiaoqing swallowed the amber after turning into a snake, and soon told him that he needed a place with a lot of space by connecting with Lion's soul. What he had just eaten was pushing it to evolve. Evolution. Xiaoqing's words shocked Ryan. As a pet he had bred before, Ryan himself didn't even know how to grow a creature like Xiaoqing that is unique in the world. Because of this, Ryan was very happy after learning that Xiaoqing would evolve. www.mtlnovel.com. After all, a brutal war broke out now. It's great news for Ryan to get a new and powerful helper in this situation. So he immediately took Xiaoqing to the edge of the luminous sea that had been cleaned up, because before it said that the radiation did not cause any harm to it, and this inaccessible place can prevent it from running out of control and harming others during the evolution process. After arriving at the scheduled location, Lane put Xiaoqing on the ground. After Xiaoqing touched the ground, it relieved the shape of the snake and turned into a large entangled vine, and then spread quickly with his core. Ryan was surprised when the vine was not expanding after 15 minutes. Discovered that he was standing on a green field composed of 4 vines the size of a football field. My master, let's see you in 6 months. After Xiaoqing finished the last sentence, he fell asleep, and Ryan arranged some defensive magic around him and told his subordinates to optimistic about this place. After entering, the person silently prayed and left the place. After everything was finished, Ryan and Hermione bid farewell to the scientists who were busy because of the large amount of items sent this time, and then returned to the Wonji grocery store. This time we have figured out a part of the runes about space. I think we should start the research immediately, and the results will be researched soon. Lane originally planned to go back to Hogwarts Castle and rest, but Hermione he put forward his own opinion. She didn't want to drag this most important thing back. Okay, Ryan nodded helplessly. In the face of a serious and hard-working person like Hermione, Ryan felt that sometimes he really needed to work harder. Chapter 558. In class. Anything related to the rules is very complicated, even if it is just a little bit. For example, the super complex spirit preparation method, the powerful 3-piece set of unreasonable death, and the various mysterious, space-related runes that Ryan and Hermione are currently studying from the Space Channel. After they started researching, they found out, these runes are not only complicated, but the depth of knowledge contained in them is far beyond Ryan's imagination. For Ryan and Hermione, whose majors are alchemy and death, this knowledge about the rules of space is still too difficult. Fortunately, Ryan had enough support teams to bring the gods from Teacher Liu Ozan to the world of the Lord of the Rings. After the group of scientists who developed the space transmission device at the last college had consulted them all, Ryan finally got the batch of runes. It's finally over, Ryan said tiredly after a full month. Hermione nodded with a dark eye on her side. She had never thought that this seemingly simple thing would be so complicated to operate. These efforts have been rewarding. The combination of the researched space-related techniques and phantom transformation has produced a powerful effect. One of them is that the range of phantom transfer has been greatly improved, and now they can easily transfer phantoms from northern Scotland to Marseille in southern France. This is much stronger than the previous phantom transfer to London. The second is to improve the stability of the phantom shift, which allows them to change their orientation through phantom shift in the same battle as Voldemort in the case of weaker strength levels, so that they can obtain strong maneuverability in combat. But the above 2 points are not their biggest gains. After mastering the simplest part of the use of space rules in this world grocery store, Ryan and they can finally break through the anti-phantom shift spell. It can be miraculously transformed in a defensive magic area like Hogwarts Castle or Malfoy Manor like a house elf. So we haven't been in vain for this month's kung fu. Okay, let us go to the palace of River Valley City to drink some elf liqueur and get a good night's sleep. You need to know that when he came in, we had just finished breakfast, and after going out it's time to go to the black magic defense class. Lane said to Hermione, who looked tired on the side. Even after mastering some of the rules, magic transformed them to allow them to work for a long time, but after studying complex knowledge, the exhaustion of the soul is still inevitable. After this rest, I slept for 3 days, But fortunately after 3 days of hibernation, with the help of adequate sleep and top-level elf honey, the fatigue of the previous 2 people due to adventure and research has finally disappeared. Ryan they also restored to the state before entering the world grocery store. Okay, I think we should go to the black magic defense class, or it will be bad if we are late. After trying a few short phantom shifts in this common room, Hermione watching the wristwatch said anxiously. The current black magic defense class professor is Professor Snape. It's definitely really bad in case we are late. Okay, I'll pack things up and we'll set off immediately, Lane whispered as he packed up. We saved so many people, completed so many almost impossible tasks, and traveled so many worlds. But now we have to worry about being late for class. This is... But before he finished speaking, Hermione interrupted, but this is life, real life. And I also think that this ordinary person's life can regulate our various mentality well. Otherwise, I will be a savior all day long. It's easy to lose your heart. I know. Ryan had already packed his things and pushed open the door of the laboratory. At this time, he said as he signaled Hermione to come out. I know all these things, but sometimes the feelings in my heart always feel weird. In this way, the 2 people walked into the classroom while chatting. The Black Magic Defense classroom this semester was set in the basement, where the potion classroom was. It can be seen that the classrooms of Hogwarts followed the professor, and not every classroom has its own arrangement. Lane suspected that in Hogwarts Castle, only those important rooms, such as the principal's room or the auditorium, had not changed. After arriving in the underground classroom, the students have reached more than half, which is earlier than most classrooms. It can be seen that Snape's deterrent effect on the big guy is still very strong. The bell rang soon after class, and Harry hurried in from the outside at this time, but the scene was just seen by Snape who was on the podium. Afterwards, it was logically deducted by Professor Snape, and at the same time was approved. What's going on with Harry? I remember he had no class just now. Hermione gave a strange glance at Harry who had just ran in and said to Ryan through the Phoenix brand, I really hope he will not cause any more trouble this time. Seriously, Harry really likes to make his own claims. He always feels that he is the only one who can save the world, but in the end he always needs someone to help him clean up the back thing. It's always good for young people to be aggressive, Ryan commented. Besides, the time just now was just over an hour. I don't think Harry can do anything terribly shocking at that moment. The first thing in class was to collect homework. Snape waved his wand inadvertently. 25 rolls of parchment rose into the air, and fell into a pile neatly on his desk. Before starting class, I want to see your Dementor thesis. I hope for you that this time is better than that resists the soul curse. Now, please open the book and turn to, what is it? Classmate Finnegan. Seymour began to ask Snape about corpses and ghosts. Harry was dissatisfied with Snape's description of Mondongus as a stinking thief, and he whispered to Ron around him. Mondongus was caught. Shouldn't he be uncomfortable? Ryan felt that he could not understand the strange thoughts of Harry at this time, which was different from the arrest of a member of the Phoenix Society last year or the innocent arrest of the night bus conductor this year. He felt that a guy who was robbed by fire and had a proven conviction was caught entirely on his own account. Even as an acquaintance who expressed disgust at this behavior was normal. Now Harry can say such things only to say that at this time Harry and Snape are indeed incompatible, and both sides are doing their best to add plugs to each other. Perhaps because of Harry's whispering movement, Snape immediately asked Harry to stand up and answer how to distinguish between corpse and ghost. This naturally attracted the attention of the whole class. Many people turned their heads and looked at Harry in the last row with a gloating eye. This the ghost is transparent, Harry said www.mtlnovel.com. He saw Snape was about to interrupt what he said and speeded up, finishing the following. Ghosts are a type of soul, naturally transparent, but corpses are dead bodies, aren't they? So they should be solid. Very well, it's obvious that the magic education of the past 6 years hasn't been in vain for you, Potter. The ghost is transparent and the corpse is solid. I think a 5-year-old can say this too. Snape sneered. The corpse is a dead body evoked by black magic. It has no life and can only be used to execute the wizard's orders. And ghosts, I believe that anyone who has read the textbook seriously knows that it is the mark of the leaving soul in the world. Your solution is a bit complicated, Ron argued. In case I really meet someone who is sure to see if he is solid, instead of there to distinguish whether she is a black magic creation or a leaving soul. Mark in the world. Gryffindor deducts 10 more points. Ron Weasley. I don't think I can count on you, a student who can't even do simple phantom shifts, to study any complicated problems. Snape's words made Ron decadent, and then the whole class seemed to be sluggish. But Ryan was quite rewarded in this lesson. This lesson is about the heart-draining curse, and Professor Snape, a former Death Eater, naturally has a lot to learn in this regard. Ryan analyzed some precious first-hand materials from Snape's explanations, and these materials are very helpful for studying the relationship between magic and soul. In Hogwarts, I can gain countless knowledge, but I still need the people who attend the class to be careful enough to discover these things. Ryan watched most of the sleepy students in the class shake their heads and then looked down, continue to copy class notes. Chapter 559, Lesson Under. The bell rang after class, and this extremely depressing black magic defense lesson was finally over. The content of the Diamond Heart Curse itself is already very depressing, coupled with Professor Snape's ever-changing gloomy face, which caused almost every student in his class to walk away from the entrance of the underground classroom with a depressed face. Go out. It was as if there were a large group of fried snails in the classroom. Snape was right, isn't it? Ron complained to Lavender, who ran next to him after class. At this time, they were trying to go around a somewhat remote road back to the dormitory, because this road would pass through a section. Corridors that can be basked in the sun can breathe fresh air. I don't know if it makes sense to go to the exam, because until now I still can't learn to appear in phantoms, and it feels like a waste of time and money to go there. No, my dear, you're just a little bit overly overstressed. Everyone knows that Snape has serious prejudice against our Gryffindor students. You really don't need to pay attention to what he said. Wend kissed Ron on the cheek. As for now, I think you should go to Hogsmeade's special training. It will be more interesting than showing up in a stupid wooden circle. Even if you don't succeed after the test, you can postpone the test and follow me a few months later. Go to the exam together. Oh, wonderful, love. At this time, a ghost slowly emerged from the wall. After the ghost appeared on the wall, she shouted with a sharp female voice. Unfortunately, now that I am dead, I can no longer feel this sweet love. Myrtle. Lane recognized the ghost girl in front of her. He waved his hand and said, hello. I brought some small gifts for you when I went to Tanko in the summer vacation. I asked Nick to distribute these gifts to you as soon as I went back to school. You received the gift I gave you. Yet? Received. Myrtle nodded. The celestial ones that are specially prepared for the ghosts are really useful, but I still hope you come to see me. I'm sorry, I'm busy recently. Ryan said a little embarrassedly. He was really busy lately, so that he could only say a few words with a few familiar ghosts every week, like Myrtle, who lives in Ryan. Ryan, the ghost of the place where he did not go, did not see him for a long time. Of course I know that you are busy, although I am as ghost and I know that it is very chaotic outside now. Maybe some new people will join us soon. In this case, everyone is very busy. Took off his thick glasses and wiped. So now there are fewer and fewer people willing to talk to me after this time period, and no one wants to spend a little time paying attention to my poor ghost. By the way, what are you doing now? I always thought you would only stay in that bathroom. Ryan quickly interrupted the chatter of Myrtle. He knew that these idle ghosts might spend a few moments if they wanted to say anything. Hours on one thing. If you don't want to waste time, you have to interrupt them a little impolitely and ask what you want. Wait. Myrtle twirled her cheeks in her hands and twirled in midair, then floated to face Ryan. A while ago I met a crying boy who thought he liked me. Speaking of which, Myrtle's tone turned to mournfully. He is a little lonely and likes to avoid others. So I think maybe he will come back when you are gone. We have a lot in common. I believe he feels. After this sentence was finished, Myrtle floated up a bit, looking at the corner of the corridor, looking at it expectantly. Do you say you have a lot in common? Does it mean that he is also in the water pipe? Some of the beautiful artistic conception was immediately completely destroyed by another voice. Only those who can say this kind of time at this time can only often speak. Run through the brain. No. After the atmosphere of love that was full of pink bubbles was interrupted, Myrtle looked a bit angry and protested. The voice echoed in the entire unmanned corridor. I mean, he is very sensitive. He is also bullied, feels lonely. No one speaks. He is not afraid to expose his feelings. Cry if he wants to cry. Crying? Ryan nodded thoughtfully after hearing the emphasis that Myrtle had just emphasized. It seems that each ghost has a different anchor point in this world. For example, the crying Myrtle is crying, and Barrow should be the remorse for killing Helena. This should be what Snape just said in class. The ghost of the ghost is the real reason why the leaving soul stays in the world. Only a certain emotion reaches a certain level of the wizard fork can become a ghost. And ordinary wizards can't leave such an obvious mark in the world. Naturally neither may stay in the world. Just as Ryan began to think about these questions, Harry asked his own questions curiously. Has a boy cried here? Was it a lower grade boy? Don't care, said Myrtle, who lifted her chin slightly, her eyes fixed on Ron who was already grinning. I promise not to tell anyone. I will bring his secret into. Isn't it the grave? Ron smiled. Maybe the sewer. This sentence angered Myrtle, who made an angry scream and walked through Ron's body and disappeared into the wall. It's cold. Ron shuddered. I said a word. How can she do this to me? Okay, Ron. We might have been able to ask an interesting thing. Know that there are not many girls who secretly hide in the toilet and cry, but there are still very few boys who do so. Ryan shrugged helplessly. But when you come here, we can't figure out anything now. Well, this is indeed my mistake. Ron also knew that the words he had just said when he was depressed were excessive, but he felt much better after venting these words. After throwing the school bag directly back to his shoulders, Ron said to Ryan, I want to participate in Hogsmeade special training. and then decide whether to go to the exam. That's right. Ryan nodded. How can you know if you can't succeed without trying? Okay, Ryan, every time you persuade me, it always feels like a middle-aged man's tone, Harry said on the edge. Every time I feel like a young version of Professor McGonagall. By the weekend, Ryan took Hermione to the door of the castle. Seeing her and a group of 6th graders who turned 17 2 weeks later went to Hogsmeade for a pre-exam training under the protection of several eras. Ryan was full of envy. www.mcnovel.com Because of today's weather especially good, the spring is in harmony, and it is a sunny day that has been rare to see for a long time. If this kind of weather can go out and turn around, it is definitely a great thing. After returning to the common room and answering questions in several of Neville's homework, Lane left the common room and went to the edge of Black Lake. On the way he saw Luna was experimenting with the Black Lake as a target to test the magic that Ryan had taught at the book club. Good morning, Luna. After seeing Luna's footsteps, she turned her head. Ryan quickly raised her hand and greeted her. Early, Ryan. Luna greeted Ryan with her characteristic erratic voice. Can you tell me why these spellcasting materials will enhance the power of magic? The following morning Ryan was answering Luna's questions about the accumulation of books. After Ryan answered all the questions she had accumulated, she was curious to ask her why she was not asking questions at the free time of the usual book club. Luna looked at Ryan with her prominent A's. I'm the only one of these questions that I want to know the answer to. You are my friend, and I cannot let you delay the explanation to everyone because of answering my question, and make everyone dissatisfied with you. This answer surprised Ryan. It seems that Luna is not the kind of person who does not understand the world. It's just that she has always been immersed in her own world, not paying much attention to those. But after answering the question, it's not too early. Ryan quickly bid farewell to Luna who continued to practice on the edge of the Black Lake, and then turned and ran to the castle. Because it's almost time for dinner, Hermione and their students who went to Hogsmeade to practice should also end their practice and return to the castle. Chapter 560, Save People. When Ryan rushed to the auditorium, Hermione was waiting for him at the door. He had to say that the Phoenix brand was indeed useful and could keep the two people in touch at any time. Even a place full of defensive magic like Hogwarts Castle cannot stop the connection between the two brand holders. How are you practicing today? Ryan asked as he walked into the hall together. Everything is normal, Hermione said in a dull tone. You should believe that we are at this level now. Whether it is directly phantom shifting into the castle or phantom shifting to Marseille, we have no problem. Just phantom shifting in the small town of Hogsmeade is really for me it's too simple. But not everyone who participated in the training was as calm as Hermione. Ryan heard the excitement of Ron, who was also going to Hogsmeade today, when they walked to the table. I succeeded or almost succeeded. It was supposed that the phantom appeared outside of Madame Patif's tea house during this training. I passed it a little and went to the Literati's residence, but at least I moved. When he approached, Ryan found that Harry was already sitting at the table, and Ron was talking to Harry just now. After discovering Ryan they came over. Harry and the two immediately greeted Ryan and they sat down. After Ryan sat firmly, Harry asked curiously, where did you just go? Why didn't I see you in the castle? Oh, that's it. I just went to the edge of the Black Lake to relax. By the way, I discussed some things with Luna about the study at the book club, Ryan said frankly. After listening to the specific questions Luna asked, Minutes thoughtfully nodded and said, there shouldn't be many people who can ask this question. I think there may be only Luna who knows these questions except me. Your synchronization rate is surprisingly high, Lane said after scooping a spoonful of mashed potatoes into his mouth and swallowing it. I have a hard time understanding how people like you with completely opposite personalities can reach consensus on many things. Not a consensus. Hermione shook her head very seriously. Actually, I am also very surprised. How did Luna choose the option that I need to analyze carefully to reach the correct conclusion every time? This may be fate, Ryan said with a slightly magical tone. Because he remembered what J.K. Rowling said in the interview. Luna is antonym of Hermione. This is not to say that Hermione is a very boring person, but she depends entirely on common sense and reason, and Luna is like a fairy in a fairy tale. Are you talking about crazy girls? Ron asked, looking confused. This interrogation reminded Ryan that it was rude to criticize others anyway. So he quickly digressed and tried to divert his attention. Harry, what did you do just now? Wandering around in the castle, and, having said that, Harry looked around and determined that no one had eavesdropped and lowered his voice. There is also a way to think about how to get that memory from Professor Slughorn. By the way, I also met Lupin in the corridor. He came here holding hands with Tunks. Really? Ron was suddenly excited, and it seemed that the soul of gossip was filling his mind at this time. Awesome. The two of them finally came together. When Tunks and Lupin came to our house last year as guests, it was really uncomfortable to look at each other because they couldn't be together because of external reasons. Fortunately, Lupin figured it out this year. It should be like this. Obviously this was good news, so Harry's face also had a smile on his face. They came here this time because Tunks couldn't stand the days of separation from Lupin. So he reacted to Dumbledore and hoped to resign and go to Northern Europe to find Lupin. But leaving Tunks still in Dumbledore decided to continue to be Auror for a while, and then go to the north after a while. It's a war. After hearing Harry's words, Hermione whispered in a low voice, and there was a hearty expression on their faces around Ryan. If there is no war now. For the next period of time, Harry had been trying to figure out a way for Professor Slughorn to surrender that memory. But the problem is that Harry knew he had only one chance, so he would never act rashly until he was sure enough. Under such circumstances, time passed quickly. Soon, the summer of Scotland arrived. Pieces of clear blue sky began to appear above the castle tower, but these signs of summer coming did not make Harry feel better. He failed to detect what Malfoy was doing, nor did he talk to Slughorn alone, so that he could surrender what seemed to be hidden for decades. At the same time, everyone was busy during this time. Ron was busy preparing for his phantom transfer exam, and Ryan and Hermione had been busy looking for people except for the evening break and the class time. During this period of spring and summer, Ryan and Hermione have been advancing their respective understanding of the rules. After all, the war has broken out. The two of them must improve their combat capabilities as quickly as possible, and the study of rules is a very important part of them. If they cannot break through the current level in rule research, they will not be able to. Reaching the level of Voldemort or Headmaster Dumbledore is even less likely to achieve their intended goals in this war. So as long as they are available during this time, they will go to the alchemy laboratory to study these contents. Naturally, it would be difficult for other people to find the whereabouts of the two of them. However, during this time, the brutal war outside the school still affected the people in the school. On a Friday afternoon, after all the courses were completed on that day, Ryan was preparing to go to the laboratory as usual and continue with Hermione conduct their research. When the two people walked into the hallway, he suddenly felt a tie clip decorated with a silver cast wolf head clipped on his school uniform tie vibrate slightly. Is this Lupin? Ryan pulled out his tie clip and looked at his frown, then turned a fork in the front to a corridor where no one came normally. The connector was opened, while Hermione stood in the corridor. Help Ryan look around. Professor Lupin, what happened? Lane said to the wolf head on the tie clip. Is someone injured or the manor where you are now found by the Death Eaters? How are you doing now? Nothing bad happened, and everyone is fine now. The wolf's head on the tie clip opened his mouth, and Lupin's voice came from his mouth. But we really have no other choice this time. A 5-year-old boy was bitten by a werewolf and is now badly injured. Street Mungo is helpless about the child's injury and can only watch him slowly die. So our only hope now is to find you through this emergency contact and see if you can help the boy. Is the injured child still in San Mungo? Ryan looked a little hesitant. At this time, he didn't ask about the cause, process, and results of the things. After all, it is the first to save talents. Other things can be put back. The problem is that even if you don't consider the troubles you may encounter after something is exposed, only the props and alchemy equipment needed for his own treatment are not available in St. Mungo. www.mplnovel.com. In this case, even if the Ryan magic level is not low, there is a way to solve the toxins on the werewolf. It is impossible to be insufficiently prepared to provide help. So he directly asked the most important question. He has been taken home by his mother because Street Mungo can't cure him now, Lupin said with some helplessness in his tone. In this case, Clark, the oldest former in us, had a good relationship with the child's parents when he worked in the Ministry of Magic, so he persuaded them after being asked by their parents. Then took the child back home. Just to persuade her? His eloquence is so good? Ryan felt a little unbelievable. No. He didn't rely solely on persuasion. Lupin paused for a moment before speaking. Clark gave the child some of the life potions you gave him before, and although he could not cure damage caused by wolf poison, at least the child's condition did not continue to deteriorate. It's okay, that kind of potion itself is used to save people. Ryan knew why Lupin was embarrassed just now. He must think that the potion that Ryan gave to several of their combatants was very precious, so he thought that this kind of use it may be inappropriate for others. But Ryan doesn't think so. The raw material of the life potions is the crystallization of sunlight, which is not precious to him. But at the time, out of prudence, only a little was given to Lupin, which might have caused Lupin to misunderstand them. Then tell me where the child is first. I'll come right away. Ryan soon heard Lupin say a place after he said this, and then immediately ran towards the principal's office. Chapter 561, Treatment, Part 1. Ryan, what happened? Hermione asked as he followed Ryan up the stairs. A 5-year-old boy was bitten by a werewolf and his life was in danger. Professor Lupin now hopes that I will save the boy in the past. Ryan briefly introduced what he was going to do now. So I'm going to find Professor Dumbledore now, and then use the flyway net to rush over from the principal's office. This is our fastest way now. By the way, you'd better go with me. I have some places to need your help. No problem. I am very happy to be able to contribute my power to save an innocent life. Hermione nodded and signaled that she would be happy to help in this matter, because this kind of saving innocent children is in line with her values. The main reason why Ryan hopes Hermione to pass with him at this time is that this time he used to rescue a person who can definitely be called a complicated and dying life. With the help of Hermione, a person who studies the rules of death, the grasp of successfully saving this child is much better than that of Ryan alone. When Ryan quickly ran to the door of the principal's office, they realized that they didn't know the password to enter the office. Fortunately, Ryan learned from Lupin before the Christmas holiday how to communicate with the physical guardian deity. Out of the wand, he summoned his silver hairy crab patron saint, and then watched it disappear into the wall. A dozen seconds later, the stone monster at the door of the principal's room jumped aside and the door opened. Lane hurriedly took Hermione 3 steps and ran upstairs in 2 steps. After pushing the door open, the two saw Professor Dumbledore sitting on the big table in the principal's room, and a thick parchment book was spread on the table. "Ryan, you just told me that you are in a hurry to leave from my fireplace with me. Can you tell me what happened?" Dumbledore looked at Ryan standing in front of him through his half-moon glasses. They asked, "Professor, we are going to Montgomery Manor now. Professor Lupin told us that the youngest 5-year-old child of Montgomery's family was bitten by a werewolf, and is now dying. I think Hermione and I may be able to save him." Ryan used Pole said quickly. "Oh, if that's the case, hurry up." Dumbledore heard Ryan's explanation and immediately stood up and lit the fireplace with his old wand. Then he handed over a small silver jar filled with flyway powder. "I wish you all the best, and I also hope that the victim will finally get better." "Thank you, Professor." Ryan gave a slight bow to Professor Dumbledore before walking to the stove and throwing a handful of flying powder into the flames. With a cry, the fire turned green, and Ryan walked in and shouted, "Montgomery Manor." In an instant he felt that he was tucked into a drum washing machine, his body spinning rapidly. Finally Ryan rushed out of a white marble fireplace when he felt he was about to spit out. As soon as he came out of the fireplace, he saw Lupin standing there waiting for him. After using his wand to help clean up the ash with Hermione coming out later, Ryan greeted Professor Lupin. "Good afternoon, Professor Lupin. How is that child now?" "It's a terrible situation." Lupin squeezed his lips hard before waving to Ryan to follow him. "Fortunately, his condition has not deteriorated under the influence of your potions. The main problem with him now is the werewolf toxin on him." In Professor Lupin's introduction, Ryan and they came to the second floor together. After pushing open a white painted wooden door, Ryan saw a little child covered in bandages lying on the bed in this bedroom. A pair of middle-aged people who looked like child parents were staring nervously at him. In addition, there is a middle-aged man in his 50s with grey hair who is feeding some golden liquid in a glass bottle into the mouth of the child lying on the bed. He should be the werewolf named Clark. After hearing the sound of the door opening, several people in the room looked up at the door at the same time. Lupin quickly stepped forward to explain the identity of Ryan to the injured parents. And Ryan immediately went to the bed to start preparations before treatment. There are people who can put such a ruthless hand on such a small child. Just as Ryan began to arrange the alchemy array, hearing Hermione whispered beside him, Ryan raised his head and looked at the bed. He was also surprised by the injury on the child. There were dozens of wounds on the small body of this child. Even the smallest one was as long as Ryan's little finger. And many wounds are not just cut, but the entire piece of meat is gone. This should be done by a werewolf in a wolf form. Hermione's voice was irresistible. And this werewolf is the kind of born werewolf, and he was sober when attacking this child. "How do you see it?" Ryan asked as he placed a gold plate inlaid with precious stones and rune of mithril. "Because every wound on this child can create enough pain and blood loss. But all avoid the point." Hermione released a blood mist from the top of the wand to try to block these bleeding wounds, but she quickly frowned. "It seems that there is a strange force engulfing the child's vitality and also preventing the healing of these wounds. This should be the effect of the werewolf toxin." Ryan thought of saying here to Hermione, "You first blocked his wound with blood mist to prevent him from losing blood." www.mtlnovel.com. The next thing is for me. Finally, 5 minutes after entering the bedroom, Ryan built a small golden alchemy array in the middle of the bedroom. Then he signaled that Lupin, who was standing at the door and talking to his parents, was ready. "Okay, let's go to the living room below and wait," Professor Lupin said to the others, and then went downstairs first. The children's parents looked a little worried, but Lupin should have told them before. After Hest around for a while, he gave his son a serious look, then raised his head and looked at the two of them with begging eyes. After saying nothing, he turned around and left the bedroom with the former Aurora Clark, closing the door smoothly before leaving. "Let's get started," Ryan said to Hermione after seeing the other people leaving the room, and Hermione immediately waved her wand to turn the mist into a lot of tentacles. Then these tentacles gently transferred the boy from the bed to the alchemy field. The bandage that the boy had attached to his body had been removed, and all wounds were blocked by the haze of blood, so that they no longer bleed out. After confirming that the boy was correctly placed at the designated position on the alchemy array, Ryan waved the alchemy array with a ringed hand. The circle around the alchemy field was filled with life potions, and the oil lamp with silver casting gold as the core ignited a golden flame at the same time. As the flame burned, the entire alchemy array was slowly covered with a thin layer of golden mist. When the golden mist completely enveloped the child, the vital signs of the child's body finally stabilized. This also represents formal treatment. It's time to start. Chapter 562, Treatment, Part 2. "Okay, you stand here to maintain his life, and the next thing is for me." Lane motioned Hermione to stand where he had just stood, and soon a ray of ray began to appear between Hermione's hands. The mist spread to the boy. "Okay, I can guarantee to keep the child's life in the process, and it's up to you." Those mists completely covered the child lying in the center of alchemy and began to light and dark like a heartbeat. Flashing. Seeing this scene, Hermione turned her head to indicate to Ryan that it was time to start. Ryan pulled out his wand in the air and activated the energy nodes on the alchemy array one after another. After he activated all the energy nodes, the energy in the entire alchemy array became a whole in shock. Soon a lot of red light spots appeared on the boy, and these light spots rose slowly in the magic. Finally, a blood-red werewolf screamed in the sky above the alchemy formation. The werewolf looked very irritable, and as soon as he formed, he began to try to break the alchemy circle that imprisoned it. Ryan knew that the werewolf represented the werewolf toxin in this little boy. Only by taming it thoroughly would the child be turned into danger. The only thing that hasn't changed in the world is the change itself. After reading the spell in Latin with gestures, a lot of magic mixed with a trace of alchemy rules poured into the magic circle, and the golden mist that shrouded the magic circle instantly it slowly began to condense, turning into a spiked vine like the werewolf figure in the air. The werewolf figure began to struggle desperately, and the child in the center of the alchemy array sparred like a dehydrated fish with the struggle of the virtual shadow. Fortunately, the child was fixed in place with the help of the mist released by Hermione. At the same time, the energy on the alchemy array also transformed into vitality into his body through the transformation of mist. Between life and death, in a flash. After discovering that the struggle of the Scarlet Werewolf caused a rapid loss of the child's life, Hermione also recited the mantra. When her words fell, the mist swirling around the child slowly turned up, and finally formed a vortex of the size of the alchemy array, which greatly increased the efficiency of converting magic power into vitality. It just made up for the rapid loss of vitality before this child. Because of the vitality supplement, the child stopped cramps and calmed down. At the same time, along with Hermione's magic, the child's vital signs are slowly returning to normal. In this way, Ryan eliminates worries and can do his best to transform the werewolf toxin. Because the process of the werewolf virus can convert humans into werewolves is irreversible, so Ryan's current treatment plan is to convert a certain amount of werewolf toxins that have been integrated into the child's body until the new werewolf toxicity reaches that threshold, making him become new werewolf. Then use the powerful vitality of the converted werewolf to completely repair the body. Previously, the reason why Saint Mungo believed that this child could not be saved was that as a biological toxin, the werewolf toxin would quickly integrate into the human body after entering the human body, prompting the conversion of the human to the werewolf, and also hurt the body. If under normal circumstances, people will only be transformed into werewolves after some pain, but the child was too badly injured before, so the werewolf virus cannot be stopped when the body is injured. And because the werewolf virus has been mixed with the vitality of the child, whether it is using curse or potion to treat the child, it is to supplement the power of the werewolf virus while treating the child. This is what the therapists of Saint Mungo used to do, the reason for the helplessness of the wound on the child. Now, Ryan's alchemy team successfully used the alchemy rules to make some separation between the werewolf part and the vitality part of the child. In this case, he can change the parts related to the werewolf without hurting the child itself. The next treatment is no different from the previous treatment. With the help of Hermione's magic, Ryan can move his focus away from maintaining such a small life and devote all his energy to the transformation of the new werewolf. Due to the loss of vitality as a backing, the werewolf toxin quickly showed its decline. The shadow of the werewolf in the alchemy circle was completely entangled by the golden vine into a cocoon-like thing, and then the spines on the golden vine deeply penetrated into the werewolf's body. In this process, the isolated werewolf virus can only make some weak resistance. After a few minutes, the cocoon of golden vines slowly melted and then collapsed inward little by little. When all the cocoons of the golden vines disappeared, a golden four-legged phantom replaced the previous phantom of the scarlet werewolf on the alchemy array. This is an image of a golden grey wolf cub, looking very cute. After this phantom ran like a circle around the alchemy array, the scattered golden light merged into the child lying in the center of the alchemy array. He is alive now. Hermione's rejoicing voice was heard immediately. Ryan looked at the little boy after hearing it. Sure enough, the wound on the child was slowly converging and disappearing, and at the same time Hermione was letting the mist away little by little. His vitality is recovering, and it is stronger than before. I don't need my extra help anymore, Hermione explained, then asked in a curious tone, why did he absorb the magic of the alchemy array to heal yourself? Is it because of us just now? No, the werewolf itself is like this, Lane said with a slightly envious tone. They are considered a kind of magical creatures, so like many magical creatures, they can heal themselves by absorbing magic power. Think of Professor Lupin's lack of venom poison when he was young. In that case he was locked in a screaming shack, struggling will definitely hurt himself. But he was a little tired the next day, and did not leave many wounds. Then why are these things not recorded in our textbooks? Hermione asked the boy to use magic to move the child back to the bed after Ryan confirmed that the injured person was okay. and then asked him to turn his head after gently covering the quilt. Because wizards have always regarded werewolves as enemies, dirty creatures. So the records of werewolves mainly focus on how to identify them, and even kill them. This simple record of werewolf physiological characteristics is not the focus, so not many people are willing to go and record them. I discovered this after helping Lupin to treat them, Ryan said, shrugging here, then half kneeled there and began to split the alchemy ray into pieces and put them back into the space bag. Hey Minutes is also helping him nearby. When everything was done, Lane notified Lupin downstairs. Soon, the door was opened suddenly after the sound of a staircase, and the Montgomerys rushed to the bed like a whirlwind. In their call, their son finally opened his eyes. However, because of the severe injuries and fatigue, the little boy continued to sleep after only a few words. So the 6 people quickly and quietly exited the bedroom and closed the door, and came to the living room downstairs together. Thank you so much, Mrs. Montgomery whimpered as she entered the living room and shook hands with Ryan and Hermione. www.mtlnovel.com. Mr. Montgomery next to him also looked at the two with grateful eyes. This is what we should do, and we are also very happy to save an innocent life, Ryan exhorted. It took a few minutes for the Montgomery couple to calm down slightly, after which Mrs. Montgomery prepared dinner for everyone, while Mr. Montgomery stayed in the living room to talk to everyone. In the discussion, Ryan learned that Mrs. Montgomery was working in the Department of Immigration of the Ministry of Magic, and this time her young son was bitten by a werewolf because she refused a Death Eater to ask her to treat some people from Southern Europe. He opened one eye and closed one eye. So Death Eaters use this to kill chickens and scare monkeys, and warn those of the Ministry of Magic not to hinder them. This time it was Fenrir Greyback, who was the one who bit me. Lupin said that it was very calm here, as if talking about what happened to others. He is an evil maniac and likes to attack children. He bites 1/3 of the people in our plantation. Also, he seems to be the kind of so-called born werewolf, who can also have a certain degree in the werewolf state, self-awareness, and this time when he came to bite, he should have the idea of intimidating other people, otherwise he wouldn't kill others by his habits. Controlling children with soul-spelling curse, using werewolves to kill children. I really don't know what evil things this Death Eater will do next. Hermione's voice became sharper when he said this sentence, and he could hear she is very angry now. So that's why we are fighting them, Ryan said, putting his hand on Hermione's shoulder. I really hope that no more innocent people will be hurt. Chapter 563, Back to School. Soon a sumptuous dinner was prepared by Mrs. Montgomery, and the Montgomery family was not the ancient pure-blooded family. So there is no house elf at home, so you can only cook by yourself. Of course, their economic situation is still much better than that of the Weasleys, from the size of the manor to the decoration of the rooms. Ryan suspects that this is probably because their family is a dual-worker family and has only 3 children, which is much better than the 7 children of the Weasley family. After eating quickly in a quiet, several people went upstairs together to check the physical condition of the little guy. After confirming that the little guy had completely turned into a new werewolf, Mrs. Montgomery stayed upstairs to take care of her little son, and Mr. Montgomery and Ryan returned to the living room with them to discuss future plans. I think in addition to the 2 daughters who went to school at Hogwarts, the rest of our family must leave the UK. Mr. Montgomery, an international trader, sighed. Because my child's nearly life attack by the werewolf this time made me understand that Britain is not so safe now. It can even be said that except Hogwarts Castle where Professor Dumbledore is sitting, all other places may be evil and crazy. The targets of the Death Eater's next attack. Looking at Mr. Montgomery, who was frightened by this incident, Lane really felt the helplessness and sadness of an isolated and helpless ordinary person in this war environment. After glancing at Ryan, Professor Lupin sent out his invitation on behalf of the big guy. You can stay with us. As the new werewolves, we have our own home in Northern Europe, where we can provide enough help for your son. At the same time, we new wolves also need international traders like you. Have you already had so many people? After listening to Professor Lupin's brief introduction, Mr. Montgomery said with some shock, before my friend Clark told me about this, I never knew you had done it so much. Yeah, who would pay attention to us werewolves? Lupin smiled a little self-deprecatingly, and then looked at Mr. Montgomery seriously. You don't need to make a decision right away. We will wait for you as long as you notify us after you decide. No more consideration. We decided to leave the UK, the sooner the better. I will resign the OWL to the Ministry of Magic tonight. At this time Mrs. Montgomery stepped down the stairs, then stood beside her husband and looked at Ryan. Speaking of which, he turned to look at his husband. Honey, we shouldn't hesitate anymore. I think the Death Eaters might come back to attack again after discovering that Andrew is not dead. Our manor certainly cannot stop their attack. I don't want our son suffer these again. You are right. It may be that the topic of the child moved Mr. Montgomery, and he nodded gently. But you like your job so much. I remember what you said to me in 7th grade. But everything is more important than life. Mrs. Montgomery shook her head slightly and said that as a mother, She regarded her children as more important than everything else. I believe that I can still start again when I went to other places. Moreover, after our two daughters go to school, we don't have much financial burden, so we don't have to worry about living in a new place. Well, you're thinking very carefully. Then let's do it. Mr. Montgomery made up his mind and then turned to look at Lupin. I'm willing to work for you, only hope that our little son can grow up as normal as you do, and no longer suffers from the abominable attack now. You don't have to worry about this matter. Lupin comforted with a kind voice. There are kids here too. I don't think Andrew will feel lonely there, and you'll know when you go there. Our plantation is producing more and more things and business is getting better. But because the reason why we are werewolves is that most of us have not received a good education, so we need talents like you to help us. I think you will play your worth there. Later, Lupin talked a little bit about the trade links between the plantation and the magic world of various countries, especially the magic world of the heaven and earth. Ryan saw the tension caused by the Montgomery couple to go to an unknown place. With Lupin's explanation reduced a lot. After a period of deliberation, Professor Lupin and Clark decided to stay at the Montgomery Manor for one night to protect the Montgomery couple, so that Andrew Jr. would recover and leave together the next morning. After seeing everything arranged, Ryan and Hermione said goodbye to the owner of the manor. We are going back to Hogwarts now. Hogwarts' recent magic defense has improved by more than one grade. We used to come by Professor Dumbledore's fireplace, so we can't let him wait for our time too long. Lane said to the Montgomery couple. If this is the case, I won't keep you anymore, but this time I really thank you for saving our children. If there is any need for us in the future, please tell us and we will do our best to help you. Mr. Montgomery held his wife's hand and said to Ryan, wish you all the best. So, goodbye. After saying this, Ryan turned and stepped into the green flame in the fireplace. After the word Hogwarts was exported, he left the Montgomery Manor. Good evening, Ryan. When Ryan walked out of the fireplace in the Hogwarts principal's room, Professor Dumbledore, who was operating the pile of silverware on the table and emitting smoke, immediately greeted him, and then asked, how is the Montgomery's child now? The rescue is here, and the child is no longer in danger, Ryan said, taking out her wand and helping Hermione, who had just arrived, to clear the ash from her body. Then looked at Professor Dumbledore. But he is still a werewolf, and I can't reverse this process. It's not your fault. Principal Dumbledore turned to the table and sat down. The situation is becoming more and more chaotic. Both the Phoenix Society and the Ministry of Magic are trying their best to maintain social order and stability. But we cannot protect all people. So why not arm everyone? Just like Ryan provides combat training for everyone. Hermione always respects authority, but after seeing the victim's miserable condition today, she couldn't bear to get some stimulation. The impulse to stay in the heart asked Dumbledore's own question. www.mplnovel.com. Children, we don't have to hurt innocent people. The war should be handed over to the warriors who participated in the war. Pull into this war. Dumbledore looked at Hermione and said, this view of Dumbledore is a traditional view of war in the wizarding world. That is, war belongs only to those involved in the war, and has nothing to do with civilians. This view is not wrong, because before this war, especially before the secrecy law was abolished, there were not many people in the wizarding world. So every war of the wizards is a limited war, because the purpose of the war is to seize control of the wizarding world. Given the scarce number of wizards in Britain, if there is a full-scale war, it is likely that there will be few people after the victory of the war. But after Voldemort became half crazy because of the Horcrux, he completely broke this rule, but President Dumbledore still saw the present war with a past concept. But now the mysterious person has drawn ordinary people into the war. Since they can do things that use the soul capture spell to control the child to hurt their grandfather or order the werewolf to bite the child, then they will not do anything evil. Strange. In this case, I think everyone should learn to master the power to protect themselves, Lane said excitedly to Dumbledore. Let's discuss this matter later. Dumbledore pressed his hands down. It's not too early now. I think you will be tired after a busy afternoon. You should go back to the dormitory and rest. So Mr. Principal, good night. Seeing that the principal did not want to continue talking about this issue, Ryan pulled Hermione together and said good night to Professor Dumbledore, and then left the principal's office. Chapter 564, Ready for Action. Why doesn't Principal Dumbledore accept our opinion? On the way back to the dormitory, Hermione asked Ryan directly. I think there is nothing wrong with what we just said. It's not wrong, but as the leader of the White Wizard, Mr. President certainly can't act like we do. He has too many things to consider. For example, after we have armed everyone, there will definitely be a part of the original neutral pureblood wizard mysterious person. This will bring unfavorable results to the following war. In the final analysis, we are too weak. Hermione shook her head and her brown hair fluttered over Ryan's nose to make it tickle. Professor Dumbledore can block the mysterious person, But whether it is a member of the Order of the Phoenix or the Arres of the Ministry of Magic are not opponents of those crazy black wizards in battle. Not to mention that our headmaster Dumbledore has too much to protect and cannot attack and kill like mysterious people. Under the circumstances, the principal can only compromise as much as possible to protect more people. So this is the meaning of our 2 covert operations, and now it seems that such covert operations have to be kept so covert for a long time. Lane took this opportunity to test Dumbledore today. It turned out that the principal should have known the current situation, but reality forced him to do these things in the past. In this case, Ryan found that he could only rely on himself if he wanted to do anything. Fortunately, he has a golden finger strong enough to support him to do what he wants to do. In short, after these experiences today, Ryan once again determined that if the situation is to change in the direction he wants, improving his own strength is the only way. So for the next period of time, he spent all his free time every day on controlling the rules of alchemy. Therefore, Ryan was busy during this time, but the hard work was always rewarding. On the morning of Hermione's Phantom Transfer exam, Ryan completed all preparations for the production of Our Lady of Roses. Now in the 1G grocery store, 4 small representing earth, water, fire and wind are slowly rotating on an alchemy array. Even those who do not understand alchemy can feel the power contained in these things. Of course, even if these achievements seem to be only one step away from the production of Our Lady of Roses, there is actually a long distance. This distance is not only in the production of Our Lady of Roses, but also the level of understanding about the rules of alchemy. However, Teacher Luo Zhen is very satisfied with Ryan's progress now. He warns Ryan not to be impatient at this time. So when is it appropriate for me to break through? Ryan asked curiously. At this time, Hermione was conducting a habitual review before the exam in the laboratory, looking at the Ministry of Magic booklet, Phantom Appears, Common Mistakes and Ways to Avoid It. Ryan took this opportunity to go directly to the world of Rose Maiden and ask Luo Zhen directly. I don't know. Luo Zhen shook his head helplessly. Even if the 2 of us choose to have very similar rules, but because of the different reasons for the 2 of us, there is still a big difference in the understanding of the rules, so you can't just stick to my experience. The only thing I can tell you that is, when you are really proficient in this rule, you will know from your heart that the time is up. Well, it seems that I can only wait now. Ryan touched his hair, and then accompanied Teacher Luo Zhen and Alice for a while and then returned to the laboratory with them after leaving. How is it? Do you have any clues now? Hermione asked directly after hearing Ryan appear in the laboratory. It's there, Ryan replied in a certain tone. That's good. Hermione also replied in a cheerful tone. In this war, at least one of us needs at least one person to reach the level of Professor Dumbledore or the mysterious person. Only then can we be in this war, protect innocent people and realize our dreams. If there is insufficient strength, no one will be willing to listen to what we say. So how do you understand the death rules? Ryan asked. A bit stronger than the original, but still a long way from mastering. So the next hope can only be pinned on you. Hermione closed the book and looked at Ryan seriously. The reason why Hermione said this is because in a society of wizards, power still determines everything. So Ryan is now improving his strength not only to defeat the enemy during the war, but also to change the entire magical world as he wishes after the war. Of course, it is still too early to consider this in this environment. Soon Ryan collected his thoughts and left the laboratory with Hermione for lunch in the auditorium. There should be very few people taking potion classes this afternoon. We all go to the exam. Harry, as I said, you should take this opportunity to find a way to soften Slughorn. Just sat next to the table. Ryan heard what Ron was saying to Harry. I have thought of dozens of methods, but these methods cannot guarantee 100% without problems, unless we can be lucky enough to make countless coincidences. Lucky? Ron said suddenly. Harry, that's right, lucky. What are you talking about? Harry was a little confused, but Ron immediately reacted and turned to look at Ryan and asked, is your magical agent still there? Of course, still at www.mplnovel.com. Ryan nodded. I only consumed a few drops when I studied, and the rest was collected by me, because there is really no need for me to use this bottle of medicine recently. It turns out that way. Hermione also reacted at once. You mean to use Harry's bottle of potions to make Harry lucky enough in a short period of time, and then use these luck to make Harry's plan go smoothly? Finally got Professor Slughorn at memory, right? That's it. Ron nodded, and then showed a very embarrassed look. Of course, I know that the remedy is very expensive, so I will pay you the money for the potion. Harry took the words and said, it won't cost you anything. With our relationship, there is no need to say that there is no loss. Ryan waved his hand generously. If you need it, you can directly take the bottle of decoction and use it. What else do I need to help? You can also tell me directly. After all, this chance of prying Slughorn's mouth is only once, and I feel I want to be as perfect as possible. If this is the case, I hope. Harry began to talk about his plan. After listening to his complaint, Ryan found that there were still too many uncertainties in the plan. It seemed that he could only hope for fooling the effect of the agent. Relax, Harry. Your plan has invested all our resources in one go, and I can be sure that we can't do better than this," Lane comforted. "The next step is to see if the effect of the demon agent is the same as what Professor Slughorn said." Chapter 565, Class. "By the way, who are the two girls over there?" "They don't look very happy." Because the topic was just being discussed too seriously, when he walked into the yard after eating, Ron pointed at the pair who came by. The girl tried to digress. "They are the Montgomery sisters, and their younger brother was bitten by the werewolf, reportedly because their mother refused to help the Death Eaters," Harry said uglily. "Although I heard that their younger brother was saved by a high-powered wizard, they still became werewolves." "Oh, I'm sorry. I really don't understand their business." Ron apologized heartily. He had wanted to make a fuss about relaxing Harry. "I really didn't expect to hear such bad news." "So, Harry, you have to get that memory. This is all to stop the mysterious man, isn't it? The terrible things that are happening now are caused by him." Hermione looked a little sad. "Don't be so frustrated. At least Andrew Jr. is doing well now." Lane comforted Hermione through the Phoenix Seal. "When I went to treat the werewolves last weekend, Professor Lupin told me that the Montgomery family of 3 is now doing well in Norway. Montgomery found a job suitable for them and Andrew Jr. also made new friends." "I know." Hermione nodded undetectably. "But this incident is indeed a tragedy in itself, and we can't guarantee that everyone is as lucky as he is. So I hope that Harry can find that memory so that he can defeat the mysterious man as soon as possible so that such tragedies will not repeat. I believe things will get better, and I wish you all the best in the afternoon," Ryan said. At this time the bell in the castle rang. Ryan and Hermione hugged to say goodbye to her, and then watched her and a group of students leave the gate of the castle. "Is going to Hogsmeade to take the Phantom Migration exam." There were only 4 people in the potion class that afternoon, except for Ryan and Harry. Only Ernie and Draco Malfoy remained. "None of you are at the age when a phantom is visible?" Slughorn asked kindly. "Not yet 17." Everyone nodded together, and Slughorn was suddenly excited. "It seems that your students are older this year. When I was in Hogwarts, the first phantom shift test every year was often more in my class than now." Ryan could understand what was going on, because Voldemort was completely wiped out the year they were born. In this case, everyone will naturally go out from the house where they have been hiding for a long time. It wouldn't do much like hiding at home when Voldemort was raging, except to eat and sleep and only make children. Therefore, it is normal for the magic world to have a low fertility rate during this period. "That's good." Just as Ryan considered these historical details more than a decade ago. "I heard." Slughorn clapped his hands and said happily, "Since the number is so small, let's do something fun, and I want each of you to give me something interesting." "Sounds great, sir." Ernie rubbed his hands flatteringly. Malfoy didn't have a smile. It seemed that his father's imprisonment and the task assigned by Voldemort put too much pressure on him. "What do you mean, something interesting?" he asked anxiously. "Oh, give me an accident." Slughorn answered easily. However, this sentence did not excite Malfoy. Ryan saw him with a sullen face and opened his advanced potion maker, with a sad look on his face. "What is more obvious is that he thinks this course is a delay. Sitting in the underground classroom is undoubtedly a waste of time that can go to the room where you can." Just 2 days ago, Ryan just went to the Binnier to check the progress of the repair of the disappearing cabinet, and used the newly improved understanding of the space rules to strengthen the traps that were previously placed on the disappearing cabinet, so that the effect and concealment of the traps were improved at the same time. He was a little worried before that Malfoy would find his hands and feet in the disappearing cabinet. But after careful inspection, he realized that he was thinking too much. Malfoy's level of alchemy was far below his imagination. Take the disappearing cabinet that Malfoy is repairing now. His repair progress on this alchemy appliance is very slow. Ryan felt that the repairs he had made over half a semester would only take up to 2 hours to repair if he changed to himself. In addition to the slow progress, the repair level of the disappearing cabinet is not satisfactory. During the inspection, Ryan found that the entire prop only repaired the core space transfer circle, and many of the attached magic runes are still in a damaged state. This is reflected in the actual operation. Now the items can be transferred between the 2 disappearing cabinets, but in the absence of the coordination of magic runes about positioning and protection, the transferred items are likely to be received during the transfer process. Irreversible damage. Of course, in this case, it is impossible to transfer personnel. So Malfoy now looks much thinner and thinner than at the beginning of the semester, and his skin has become paler, even with a dark blue color. There was no arrogance on the train that Harry had said before. Think about it too. After spending a lot of energy and finding that the disappearing cabinet is still unusable and the task is completely impossible to complete, anyone will become what he is now. Ryan is not a virgin, so Malfoy's bad luck makes Ryan now in a good mood. Plus Slughorn did not specify the potion to be brewed this time, so he decided to take this opportunity to touch the fish and make something to pass this time. Ah, it looks amazing. An hour and a half later, Slughorn first walked to Harry and then clapped, staring at the golden liquid in Harry's crucible. Amusement, isn't that? What's the taste? You added a little sprig of peppermint, didn't you? It's not orthodox, but what a genius inspiration, Harry. Of course, This can offset the occasional cause by too much singing and twisting the nose. Side effects. I really don't know where you got these whimsy, my child. Unless it's your mother's genes that are revealed to you. Oh. Maybe www.mtlnovel.com, Harry said, and then he said in a slightly flattering tone, "Can I come to visit you tonight?" "Of course, children, of course. The door of my office is always willing to open for geniuses like you." The fat slughorn looked very happy after hearing Harry's words. His beard cocked and looked just like the fat seals in the zoo. "We can hold a small party in my office tonight." Ryan made a pot of potent soothing remedies in this class. Of course, in Slughorn's eyes, this is definitely not as good as Harry's creative formula beyond the textbook. But this is much better than Ernie. Ernie hurriedly invented his own potion because he tried to overcome Harry in class. But it condensed into a purple soup-like thing at the bottom of the crucible. And Malfoy touched the fish like Ryan for the whole class, only boiled a pot of burp potion that was still acceptable. Okay, the first step is done. After the bell rang, the four of them quickly walked out of the classroom. Harry lowered his voice to Ryan after seeing Ernie and Malfoy turn around and disappear. The next step is to go to Professor Slughorn's office and adapt accordingly. "Then I wish you good luck tonight," Ryan said and took out the bottle of potions from Harry's arms and handed them to Harry. "This potion will work immediately after you drink it, so I suggest you to do it before you leave. Drink to ensure that the medicament can achieve the best effect." "Thank you. I hope everything goes well tonight." Harry took the bottle and then smiled slightly nervously. After preparing for such a long time, it will be up tonight if we can succeed. Chapter 566, Ready. After the potion lesson, Lane returned to the common room. Later, taking advantage of this free time to continue his research, while waiting for Hermione to come back from the exam. But this wait was several hours. Hermione and Ron did not return from outside until late in the afternoon. "Ryan." Hermione waved to Ryan as she drilled through the portrait hole. "I took the test once this time." "I knew," Ryan said happily after stepping forward to hug Hermione. "I have known for a long time that you will be able to pass this test. By the way, what about the other people who went to the Hogsmeade exam with you?" "It's not that good." Hermione shrugged. "At most 1/3 of the people passed this exam because the prosecutors of the Ministry of Magic were much stricter than expected during the exam." "Of course I can understand this. After all, phantom migration is a very dangerous thing. The magic of letting those who are not good enough to get a permit is a serious and irresponsible practice, just like we issue driver's licenses to people who can't drive." "Oh, Hermione, I think those people are a little too harsh," Ron said, looking listless, sitting next to him, "and has been in this state since he got in." "I'm out of luck, because it's a little bit big. The examiner just saw me drop half of my eyebrows, just half of my eyebrows." "How about Slughorn?" "Very good, at least the first step of our plan is no problem. Professor Slughorn now invites me to go to his office to gather with him tonight," Harry said, then comforted the depressed Ron. "Say, you're just out of luck this time. I think you will pass the next exam and you can take the exam with me and Ryan." "I think so." Ron was in a better mood after hearing the comfort, but still a little depressed. "I've dropped half of my eyebrows this time." "It seems like it matters." "You can't say that." Hermione's expression became a little serious. "If there is a problem in Phantom Shift, it is completely uncontrollable to lose something. If you can lose half of your eyebrows, you may also lose half of your thighs. So those people who don't allow you to pass are also for your own good." "Enough." Ron looked at Hermione helplessly. "I beg you, if you can't say it. It's already very uncomfortable for me to smash the pot in the exam today." "Okay, I won't say it again." Hermione did not say anything about the exam next, but walked to the hall downstairs with everyone for dinner, and listened to the students' evaluation of today's exam. Most of the people who took the exam today scolded the Phantom to appear as an examiner while eating, while the few who passed were expressing their own sense of luck for the rest of their lives. After listening to what they said, Ryan almost thought they were not facing the Phantom Migration exam, but just ran from a large group of fire dragons. After eating and returning to the common room, Harry began to prepare the plan for the evening. He sat on the sofa in the common room and took out the little bottle and looked at it and said, "I don't think it's necessary to finish this stuff. I shouldn't need 12 hours of luck tonight. 4 or 5 hours can get the final conclusion. I only need to take a sip and 2 or 3 hours should be enough." Because before they went upstairs, they saw Slughorn enter the auditorium, knowing that he likes to enjoy it, and it is also very slow when eating. So Harry decided to recuperate in the common room now and wait for Slughorn to go back to his office. When the sun cast the last rays of the day at Hogwarts Castle, Harry estimated that the time was coming. So he and Ryan and they came to a space across the corridor from Slughorn's office and chose an empty classroom to hide in. Then they took out the bottle and took a sip. "How does it feel?" Ryan asked a little curiously. Hermione had analyzed the potion thoroughly before, but never drank it. So he is more concerned about the feeling after using this medicine. "It's amazing. It's amazing. I think it's a good idea to go straight to Slughorn's office in 2 minutes." Harry stood up smiling, confident. "Oh, Ryan, can you lend me one of your top defensive bracelets? I feel that having this thing will benefit this operation. You can rest assured that I just borrowed it. How do you know that I have a new product? Ryan asked with a smile and then took a filigree bracelet made of mitre silver and gold silk from the space bag, and more than a dozen colorful gems were inlaid on it. If you look carefully with a magnifying glass, you can see that there are a lot of translucent runes on these gems and gold wires, just like the stars in the night. This is so beautiful, Harry and Ron exclaimed at the same time. No wonder they are so surprised that this bracelet designed by the elves in The Lord of the Rings is indeed beautiful, and it attracted everyone's attention as soon as it appeared. This is the most powerful alchemy defense item I have made so far, Ryan said to Harry. In them, can provide sufficient protection against various physical and magic attacks. Even I can proudly say that in addition to the life spell you can't stop it, this bracelet can help you stop almost all the remaining curses. Wow, Ron cried out in surprise. The Weasley family has always had a lot of experience in making magic props, from Mr. Weasley's flying car to the creative production of mischievous props by their twins. The family knowledge transmission of the Weasley family is about making magic props. So Ron, who was born in that family, also knows about this kind of thing. www.mplnovel.com. So he was so surprised. Should this production be complicated? Otherwise, we would never have seen this bracelet, Harry asked after taking a close look at the bracelet. Even someone like him who didn't study magic props could feel it. The power contained in this bracelet. Yes, Ryan nodded. This is a new product made after I have thoroughly researched various newly encountered threats. The protection it can provide for users is unprecedented. However, as a trial product, its cost is too high. To the point. How much does a bracelet like this cost? Ron asked weakly. The cost is 1,750 gallons, which does not include manual expenses. Ryan shrugged. Ron seemed to be frightened by the price. He opened his mouth and couldn't say a word for a long time. No wonder you didn't give this thing to the members of the Order of the Phoenix. This cost is too expensive, Harry said with a serious look and put the bracelet in the pocket of his robe. I swear I will return this bracelet to you intact. It's okay, if necessary. This can be used as the price for your intelligence. Some information is far from measurable by money. Ryan, as the prop maker, did not take this thing very seriously. He told Harry instead, don't pay too much attention to the price of this thing. You have to use it when you should. Thank you so much, but I don't think I should be able to get to this step. Tonight I will be able to easily take that memory into my hands. Harry stood up and said confidently, okay, I think I should pass now. You are waiting for my success. Chapter 567, Drink. Did you think Harry was weird after taking the medicine? Ron asked Ryan somehow after Harry went out. I've never seen Harry like this. You are sure that the bottle of medicine is not something like a crazy potion? This may be a sequel of the demon agent, Ryan said. Professor Slughorn once said that after drinking the potion, there will be a feeling that everything is in control. Harry's attitude may have been caused by the potion, but once this potion drinking too much will affect the brain. Now this feeling will become dizzy, reckless and dangerous arrogance. It sounds terrible. Ron shrugged his shoulders, then looked at Ryan and Hermione. So I hope Harry will succeed this time. Yes, what are you going to do next time? We want to go around in the castle for a while. In recent months, we have been too busy and haven't taken a rest. So we want to take a rest today, Ryan and Hermione said after looking at each other. Well, I wish you a pleasant stay tonight. I'm going to the common room to find Lavender now. After Ron stood up, he opened the door and walked out of the empty classroom. The two of us are now left. Hermione's mouth slightly raised a smile. Whether it's your improvement in strength or I passed the exam today is something to celebrate. So do you think it's better for us to go around in a while? Go to the classroom where the book club is held. Ryan thought for a moment and said, we can have something to drink there and have a good chat. Recently, I've been too busy. I feel that we haven't been normal for a long time. People are chatting and relaxing together. After all, it is the time of war, and it will take a long time to achieve our goals. I think we may not need to be so busy after the war ends. Hermione finished standing and pulled Ryan. Of course, it is naturally a good thing to have a chance to take a break in this situation. Let's go upstairs now. Soon the two came to the classroom. There was no one in the classroom, and it seemed empty. Ryan waved his wand and turned the three desks together into a large table, and then turned the two stools into cream-colored backrest chairs on both sides of the table. Next, he continued to wave his wand, adding cushions, tablecloths and other accessories to the table and chairs. At the same time, the space pocket was opened, and some gold and silver utensils were lined up with magic to fly to the table and stop at the desired position. Try these pastries, they come from the Palace of Versailles. When everything was set up, Ryan first pulled a chair and asked Hermione to sit down. She sat on the chair on the other side of the table and introduced Hermione. And it was also the product of the most prosperous period of the Palace of Versailles in the era of Louis XIV. The dessert is a bit too sweet, Hermione complained after taking a single piece of macaroon from a pastel plate placed on a silver shelf, but she still ate the whole snack. No way, sugar was a luxury in those days. as aristocratic dim sum naturally put sugar desperately, said Ryan, finished eating the small piece of cream cake in his hand. Sure enough, the sugar in it was added to the modern people. There are still too many. It's okay. These snacks can be given to children in the world of Song of Ice and Fire as today's after-dinner snacks. They really like this sweet little snack, especially Daenerys and Lyanna. If they are not gods, the maids in the temple control that they must consume too much sugar. You don't have to worry too much. They will soon reach the age of smudgy, when they will naturally control the intake of various desserts, Hermione said with a chuckle, and then they started to discuss the anecdotes happening in various worlds. The chi on the table slowly became harmonious, and a long-lost sense of relaxation permeated the hearts of the two people. Of course, at this time, the snacks on the table have been replaced by the craftsmanship of the elves in the world of the Lord of the Rings, and even a few bottles of wine on the table have been turned into elven centuries-old fruit wine and honey wine. After all, there will be classes tomorrow, and only this kind of drunkenness is suitable for them. Just when the two people laughed about something interesting in the radiating world, the door of this empty classroom was suddenly knocked. Shouldn't it be the curfew time yet? Ryan raised his hand and looked at the watch he was wearing. Will someone be a prank? Our classroom is in a remote corridor past here. Look at it anyway. Hermione stood up and opened the door, but was surprised to find Professor Slughorn wearing a dark green velvet robe and a fancy tie. Behind him was a helpless Harry. Are you secretly drinking alcohol here? Slughorn looked at the room and said, It doesn't matter. I was also very interested in things like wine when you were as old as you. You can rest assured that I can understand the mood of young people like you, so I will not tell anyone about this. Ryan saw that Slughorn seemed to be a little more excited tonight than usual, so when Hermione made more chairs for Slughorn to sit down, he lowered his voice and asked Harry, who was following, Don't you go to his office with Professor Slughorn tonight? How come you are on our side now? And how does the professor make me feel different this evening? That's it. Harry also whispered, I just chatted with Professor Slughorn in his office just now, and he drank some wine by the way. As a result, he saw my wrist while drinking after wearing the bracelet you just lent me. I started to ask about the bracelet. There was a voice in my head prompting me to let me take him to this classroom, so I told him that you made this bracelet. Then he came to this classroom together. As for the professor, the feeling is different. I think it may be because he doesn't drink the bar during class. The voice in my head? Does the psychic agent have this effect? Ryan thought about the effect of the healing agent and sat down with Harry at the table. Since the healing agent guided Harry over, it meant that this place would allow Slughorn to confide his voice. Ryan thought he would just have to cooperate with Harry next. By the way, when you drink, you must try these fine meads, Slughorn said, taking a bottle of wine from his robe and breaking it open. I have checked, there are no poisons, he assured the others present, while dividing the wine into everyone's glasses. After your poor friend Robert happened www.mtlnovel.com I let a house self taste every bottle of my wine. Hermione frowned, and she disagreed with Slughorn's apparently as a potion professor who had so many ways to test toxicity but chose to use house elves. It's just that she didn't say anything considering Harry's purpose today. Children, let's toast for a better tomorrow. After Slughorn arrived, he raised his glass and toasted. For tomorrow, Ryan said, raising their glasses together, and then everyone took a big sip except Harry pretending to take a sip. But after drinking the drink, Lane and Hermione secretly removed the alcohol in the drink by their own methods. Ryan, I saw a magical defensive bracelet from Harry. He told me that the bracelet was made by you. Is this true? After drinking a glass of wine, Slughorn was stimulated by alcohol and bluntly stated the purpose of coming here. Of course it is true, Professor, Ryan said in a tone of pride. This is the latest trial version of those bracelets I had consigned in the Weasley joke shop. I want to pass Harry. Celebrities sell this thing. Oh, it should be like this. Slughorn nodded. I spent a lot of gold before and now I bought a bracelet in the store, but your bracelet is not the same as the previous one. Not recognized. After speaking, Slughorn pulled the sleeve up to reveal a gold bracelet. Ryan recognized that this was the top version of his defensive bracelet consignmented in the shop, and only 8 have been sold so far. It seems that the professor really lacks a sense of security. Chapter 568, Drunk. I waited for this bracelet for more than a month. Slughorn complained slightly, but he quickly changed his mind. Of course, this kind of top magic props that can be used as heirlooms can be bought with gold. It is already a lucky thing, especially this kind of work of the future alchemist master when he is young. Not to mention the current situation outside is very dangerous. There are countless people need this type of self-defense props. Thank you for your compliment. Ryan nodded slightly. But there is no way to make you wait for so long, because this kind of thing is too complicated to make. Plus I have to go to school. It is impossible to spend all my energy on this. So every month I can only make a little bit available to the store. Yeah, that's true. You are still a student. I certainly understand it, Slughorn said. But I think I can help you. I think it is a waste of time for you to do the homework at the potion making level now. I think I can allow you to avoid doing the homework after my homework. You can provide more people with magic props to resist black magic attacks. Thank you so much. Ryan smiled, and time was never enough for him. It was naturally a good thing to make more free time to do his own thing. So after listening to what Slughorn said, he opened the bottle of elf fruit wine on the table and poured a golden cup. "Professor, you try this wine." "This was the last time I went to Tankau." "It tastes really good," Slughorn said after taking a sip, and then he put the gold cup in front of him and carefully examined it. This doesn't seem to be an ordinary cup." "Of course not." Lane smiled. "All the cutlery here was made when I practiced before. Not only can I change the temperature of the liquid in the cup, but I can also check if the contents of the cup are poisonous. I used to see a similar set of utensils at the Malfoy family. Without you, this set is exquisite, and the magic effect is better than yours. But they put that thing in a glass cabinet like a baby." "The households at home polished those cups and plates, but never used them." "Then it's boring," Lane said. "All the alchemy props are made for a more convenient life, and putting these things in the shelving is completely contrary to their original intention." "It may be because you are an alchemist. Ordinary wizards are not like you." Slughorn's tone revealed a little envy. "In this world, the master alchemist is worth a lot more than the master potion, especially when Nickleem died now." In the eyes of Slughorn, Ryan will surely become an alchemist as long as he grows step by step. So naturally he was envious. In the following time, Ryan and Slughorn talked about the purchase of raw materials in Diagon Alley. Together, the two began to scold some profiteers in Diagon Alley. Soon under Ryan's intentional flattery, Slughorn began to talk about his youth. At the same time, he also patted his chest and promised to help Ryan introduce a few of his former students, so that Ryan can later buy more expensive and cheaper materials in raw materials. At this time, the wine brought by Slughorn and the bottle of wine that Ryan had placed on the table were almost finished. At this time, the demon agent gently pushed Harry. Lane noticed that Harry suddenly got close to Hermione and said something, and then Hermione pulled out several square wine bottles from another space bag, then stood up and filled the wine for Lane and Slughorn. Ryan, after receiving the notice from Hermione who branded him with a phoenix, immediately took Professor Slughorn and started talking about the purchase of various raw materials in Knockdown Lane. Obviously this attracted Professor Horn's attention. He did not notice that Hermione had changed the wine. Dwarf honey wine. Ryan took a sip and determined what Hermione had brought out. This was what the dwarves made after returning to the Lonely Mountain. They tried to use this thing to the elf honey wine market, so this wine is very close to the elf honey wine in taste. The only difference is that even though it tastes soft, the alcohol level is not low. Only 2 bottles can tip a dwarf. So at this time, Ryan can only use alchemy to decompose the drunk wine to avoid overturning himself. But Slughorn sitting opposite him is not clear about this. He thought this wine was not drunk like the sweet wine just now. As a result, only half an hour later, Slughorn sat side by side with Ryan regardless of age and began to toast each other, for Hogwarts, for Dumbledore, and also for Harry Potter. Hermione was drinking sweet tea while watching Ryan and Slughorn with a playful look. Harry pretended to be drinking with a wine glass, but he always cooperated properly with Ryan to persuade Slughorn to drink more wine. It didn't take long for Ryan to successfully sell the experimental bracelet with Harry's hand to Slughorn. Slughorn took out a bag of 2,800 gallons cast with a space extension spell and handed it to Ryan. Ryan originally asked him to ask for 2,500 gallons, but Slughorn, "If you didn't accept me, my 3,000 gallons just looked down on me." In the end, it was good to say that the two talents reached a consensus on the figure of 2,800 gallons. Then Slughorn shouted, to a future alchemist, "Cheers!" Put the bracelet into the pocket of his clothes, and at the same time lift the glass filled with amber wine into his mouth. Slughorn began to sing a soothing song after drinking the wine from the glass. Ryan had never heard this song anywhere else, thinking it should be the folk song of the wizards. Sure enough, after listening to the lyrics carefully, he discovered that the song was a story about the death of a wizard named Otto. "Death is always frightening," Hermione said after listening to the song. "So countless people are trying to avoid death and pursue life and hate death. This may be an instinct for biology. Only people can overcome the instincts of life and face death with their heads up for some great reasons when needed. Yes, that's what my parents are." Harry also received the message next to him, then looked at Slughorn. "Do you know this?" "Oh," Slughorn suppressed a hiccup. "Oh, yeah. They are really heroes, and I admire them very much. But that thing is also really terrible. Horrible, horrible." He said that he didn't know what to say next, so he reached out and picked up another wine glass filled with wine from the table. At the same time, he asked Harry, "Don't you remember, Harry?" he asked awkwardly. "I don't remember. I was only 1 year old when they died," Harry said. At this time he saw Lane pulled a small ball of herbal medicine from his arms and lit it. Soon, the smoke spread into the whole room, and Harry sniffed the grass-like smell that spread in the air. "Feel my nerves relax a lot." Soothing agent. Ryan made a mouthful at Harry before making a cheer gesture with a fist in his right hand. Harry nodded to Ryan and turned his head to look at Slughorn's eyes. www.mplnovel.com. Although I didn't remember those things because I was too young, I learned a lot after I grew up. My dad died first, do you know? Sorry, boy, I really don't know this, Slughorn said weakly. Yes. Voldemort killed him, and then walked over to his mother over his body. Harry seemed very calm, even cold. He ignored Slughorn, who looked at him with horrified eyes, and then said, he told my mother to go away. Voldemort told me that she could not die, he just wanted to kill me. She could have escaped. Oh, my God, Slughorn said softly, she could have. She didn't have to. Too terrible. Yes. Ryan saw Harry approaching Slughorn, and then said in a nearly whispered voice, but she didn't. She pleaded with Voldemort and begged me to survive. But he just laughed. Enough. Slughorn cried suddenly and raised his trembling hand. Really, dear boy, enough. I am an old man. I don't need to listen. I don't want to listen. You seem to have told me that my mother used to be one of your favorite pupils, right? Harry replied under the guidance of that little psychic agent and asked the sentence. Of course. Of course. Slughorn fell into memory with the help of alcohol and soothing agents. Who would hate her? For anyone who has seen Lily? She is so brave. So lively. But in the end, the most terrible thing came. So I hope you can help and help your son who was a proud student. Harry finally said his goal tonight. Chapter 569. Get it? Next to the square table in the middle of an empty classroom, Professor Slughorn curled up on the edge of the table like a fat walrus. Harry half kneeled in front of him and raised his face, staring firmly at Slughorn's tearful eyes. This prevented the potion professor from turning his face. What you said makes sense. I really feel very, very sorry for your mother's death, he whispered. If it can help you, of course not a problem. But that thing is useless. Useful, Harry said clearly. Your memory Dumbledore needs to understand. I need to understand. I think this is a key to avenge my mother, or even the only key. Harry stared directly at Slughorn's eyes, leaning forward slightly closer to him. I am the Star of Salvation and I must kill him. So, I need that memory. Under Harry's compulsion, the blood on Slughorn's face slowly faded, and now instead of the blush after drinking, his face looked pale. Sweat also oozed from his wide head. Are you the Star of Salvation? Of course I am. Everyone here knows. Harry finished pointing at Ryan and Hermione. They nodded together as Slughorn's eyes looked over. But, my dear child, you have demanded too much. In fact, you are asking me to help you destroy a powerful dark wizard who has never been destroyed. No, not as terrible as you said. Harry softened his tone and comforted. Don't you hate the friend who took you away, your student, even if you live a normal life and make you have to hide everywhere? Harry, of course I hate him. But, Slughorn looked terrified at this point. I know what you are afraid of. You are afraid that he will find that you helped Harry. But now the problem is that with the character of the mysterious person, he may not ask you if he has revealed his secret. He will kill everyone. He feels unfavorable to himself. Hermione said in a voice without any ups and downs. But I'm his teacher, his dean. Slughorn interrupted Ryan before he had finished. He personally killed his father and grandparents, and indirectly killed his uncle. Slughorn turned his head back and watched Harry's hopeful look. Shouldn't they say it's true? What they said is true. Harry didn't give Slughorn an answer he wanted to hear. So the way for you to really be safe now is to face him as bravely as my mother, to face the current bad situation. Slughorn seems to have collapsed, and in fact he has been in a state of extreme tension since Voldemort's resurrection. So, after drinking a lot of wine today, Harry suddenly revealed his reality and lost his square. He was trembling all over, sobbing constantly. It looks like a huge baby. I feel disgraceful. Slughorn covered his face with his hands, and then murmured between his fingers, I'm ashamed for what the memory shows. I think I might that day caused a lot of harm. It's okay. If you give me your memory, everything will be offset, Harry said. This is a very brave and noble thing, which can help you get rid of your inner uneasiness and at the same time protect your safety to the greatest extent possible. So please tell the secret, so it will be a very good thing for you and us. Then Harry and Slughorn stared at each other for a while under dim candlelight. Finally, Slughorn slowly reached into his pocket and pulled out his wand. The other hand reached out from the cloak. A little empty bottle. He still stared at Harry's eyes and pressed the wand tip against his temple, then slowly picked it up. The tip of the rod brought out a long silvery memory. It grew longer and finally broke, and silver light fluttered on the tip of the stick. Slughorn put it in the bottle. The silver wire rolled up first, and then unfolded, like a ray of green smoke circling inside the bottle. He squeezed the cap tightly with his trembling hands and handed it to Harry across the table. Thank you very much, Professor. Harry thanked him heartily after taking the bottle. You are a good boy, Slughorn said to Harry, and tears ran down his fat cheeks into his walrus beard. You have eyes like her. Don't think of me as a wicked person after this. Also, I wish you all the best. After that, Slughorn slumped on the table and slept. Okay, I think I'm going to see Professor Dumbledore now. Are you willing to join me? Harry asked Ryan and Hermione after putting the bottle in his pocket. Of course it was with you. After all, this memory has something to do with us. I think we should know about it too, Ryan said, and then he asked with some worry. Today we are asking him so much that he will not make him angry and leave Hogwarts, right? Once he falls into the hands of the mysterious man, We are in trouble. No. Harry shook his head. Fouling agent told me that Professor Slughorn will remember nothing after waking up tomorrow morning. That's fine, but what about Professor Slughorn now? Are we throwing him here? Hermione glanced at Slughorn, who snored on the table, and asked, "You reading www.uukanzu.com? It must not be thrown here. Otherwise he will be wrong tomorrow morning." "Let me think about it." "Yes," Harry whispered into the empty space around him after a shot on his chest. "Dobby, more than, I need your help now." His voice did not fall, and Dobby appeared in front of everyone after a soft crack. Dobby heard Harry's call and was very happy to serve Harry. "That's it, Dobby." Harry looked at Dobby and said, "We just had a meeting here with Professor Slughorn, and as a result Professor Slughorn drank a bit more at once. Can you get some helpers to help us return the drunk Professor Slughorn to his office? He will definitely catch a cold while sleeping here for a night." Of course, no problem," Dobby said in a sharp voice. "Serving professors and students of Hogwarts is our duty. Please be assured that my colleagues and I will settle the professor." "Then thank you, Dobby." Harry finished looking at Ryan and Hermione. "Okay, now let's go to Mr. Principal. I have a hunch that he is waiting for us in the office now." Just after three people stepped out of the classroom door, the bell of curfew rang. They glanced at each other and quickly ran upstairs. Fortunately, they all went well along the way, without encountering the professor or Filch. A few minutes later, they came out of the principal's office, after Harry said toffee finger cake to the stone monster at the door of Dumbledore's room. The monster jumped aside and made the three of them walk up the spiral staircase. "Come in." Dumbledore's voice came after Harry knocked on the door. Chapter 570, Last Memory. After Harry pushed open the door of the principal's office, Ryan looked around the office and found that everything was the same as before. The starry black night sky outside the window adds to the quietness of this house. Dumbledore was sitting behind his desk and reading a lot of documents. Ryan felt that the principal was in good spirits now, but the whole person looked tired. Think about it too. Professor Dumbledore, even powerful, is now a centenarian. If there is no magic, people of this age can live. A self-sufficiency is a miracle. Even if the lifespan of people in the magical world is greatly enhanced, some natural laws can't be violated. In such a tense situation, as the greatest white wizard, there are too many things to deal with every day. As an old man over 100 years old, it is normal for Dumbledore to appear somewhat tired. It's you guys." Dumbledore raised his head and looked away from the documents to Ryan and them. "Is there anything going on this late?" "Sir, I got it. I got the memory of Slughorn with the help of Ryan and theirs." Harry pulled out a small glass bottle and showed it to Dumbledore. The headmaster froze for a moment, then a smile spread on his face. "Harry, this is exciting news." "It's great. I know you can do it." After talking, Dumbledore stood up, turned to the seat and took the meditation basin from the cupboard and put it on the table. "Then pour all the memories from Harry's bottle into it. Now, we are finally going to see." Then Dumbledore waved at the three people standing at the desk. "By the way, all of you come and see. This is very important to all of us." Both Ryan and Hermione were using the meditation basin for the first time. Fortunately, Harry described to them their methods and feelings when using the meditation basin. Take a deep breath and plunge into the silvery substance. They felt like they were floating, just like the random space teleportation before, through the constantly rotating darkness to fall somewhere. The only difference is that there is no feeling of being squeezed or even oppressed on the body. Suddenly, they found themselves in a room. Soon, Dumbledore and Harry also appeared beside them. They looked at Slughorn, who was much younger in this house than they are now, with thick, shiny grass-yellow hair and mustache, sitting in a comfortable winged armchair with their feet resting on velvet. On the cushion, a small glass of wine was held in one hand, and the other hand was picked in a box of pineapple compote. 6 or 7 boys in their tens were sitting next to Slughorn, including Voldemort, who was also called Tom at the time, and Lion recognized the gold ring inlaid with the resurrection stone flashing on his hand. It can be seen that Slughorn was very optimistic about Voldemort, because Ryan saw him vowing to Voldemort, "I believe you will be promoted to Minister of Magic within 20 years. Maybe it will only take 15 years if you often send me pineapple preserves. I have a strong relationship in the ministry." "It's a disgusting reality." Lane heard Hermione whispering around her, and for someone like her who had a little idealism, seeing this naked deal was always a bit uncomfortable. Also dissatisfied with this status quo was Voldemort in his youth, who was also called Tom Riddle at the time when the laughter of other boys ceased. "I don't know if politics is suitable for me, sir. First of all, I have no background." The two boys next to each other laughed. Ryan felt that Tom Riddle had spread his ancestor Salazar Slytherin by some means at this time. The boys who were undoubtedly laughing all knew that they had a prominent ancestor. "What's the matter?" Slughorn said heartily. As a member of a family in the 28 pure-blooded family, he could distinguish the student's ancestry from one's habits. And Tom Riddle's self-identification of pureblood after knowing that he is a descendant of Slytherin, and the style of the pureblood family learned from the students of Slytherin obviously made Slughorn think he was born noble. "Your talent like this must come from a decent wizarding family. This can't be more clear. You have a promising future, Tom. I have never missed a student." At this moment, The golden clock on Slughorn's desk hit 11, and he began to drive the students. God, it's time to go, children, or we'll be in trouble. Lestrange, hand in the paper tomorrow, or you'll be locked up. You are the same, Avery. The boys began to line up and leave the office. Slughorn stood up to prepare, but there was some movement behind him. After looking back, he found Riddle still standing there. Come on, Tom, you don't want to be caught out when the lights are out and you're still outside. You're a senior. Sir, I want to ask you something. Then ask quickly, boy, ask quickly. Sir, I want to ask if you know Horcrux. After hearing this sentence, Ryan and they both rejuvenated, because they know that the content they need most will appear soon. Everyone adjusts their state and concentrates on listening to each word. Slughorn stared at the young Voldemort, his fat fingers absently stroking the feet of the cup. The subject of black magic defense, is it? But all four people here could see that Slughorn knew it was not the school's homework. No, sir, what I saw in the book, I don't understand it. Riddle vividly interpreted an extremely learned image that knew nothing about this evil magic prop. Slughorn was blinded by this illusion, and he spoke to Riddle with a serious focus. Yeah, it's hard to find a book detailing Horcrux in Hogwarts, Tom. That's something very evil, very evil. But you clearly understand, sir? I mean, a wizard like you. Sorry, I mean, if you can't tell me, obviously, I just know that if someone can tell me, it's you, so I just want to ask. I can really grasp people's hearts. Ryan sighed. Slughorn was someone who liked to tout himself, and this casual compliment just scratched Slughorn's itch. From Riddle's just right question, Ryan could feel that he may have planned this for a long time, and may even spend a few Mondays practicing repeatedly in front of the mirror. From this aspect, we can see that this issue is very important to him. Well, Slughorn said, instead of watching Riddle www.mplnovel.com, he was playing with the ribbon on the box of pineapple preserves that Riddle gave him. Of course, I will give you a brief introduction. There will be no harm at all, just let you understand the term. Horcrux refers to an object that hides part of the soul of a person. But I don't quite understand what's going on, sir, Riddle said. But the four people who are watching this memory at the same time feel the inner excitement of Riddle's calm surface. That is, you split your soul, Slughorn said, hiding a part in an object outside the body. In this way, even if your body is attacked or destroyed, you can't die, because there is still a part of the soul left in the world, unharmed. But, of course, it's very bad to exist in this form. Few people think that, Tom, less and less. It's better to die. Professor Slughorn's admonition is absolutely heartfelt, and very correct. While traveling through so many worlds, Ryan also asked countless knowledge about spiritual practice. Each path of powerful practice is different, but without exception they all emphasize the importance of the integrity of the soul. But Voldemort may not know this at this time, or he may feel that he is the most special person and will not be affected by the negative effects of Horcrux. So after hearing Slughorn talk about the Horcrux, he showed a greedy expression and could not hide his desire. Man should be the master of power, not enslaved by power. At the same time, keep humility on the path of seeking power, and never think that you are the one chosen by heaven. Lane whispered to himself in his heart. Voldemort, the lessons from the negative case are too profound. He feels that he can learn a lot of experiences and lessons in this matter. Chapter 571, Origin. In the memory of Harry today, it can be seen that 16-year-old Voldemort has been fascinated by the power. So even though Slughorn had already emphasized the danger of the Horcrux, he still further asked, how to split the soul. Ryan felt that Voldemort at this time already had a partial knowledge of how to make Horcruxes. He was only trying to elicit Slughorn's next answer. But Slughorn at this time didn't know about it. He said to Voldemort anxiously, you must understand that the soul should remain intact. Splitting it is a violation, it is anti-natural. Voldemort did not flinch, so he pressed further. But how do you split? Through the evil behavior, the most evil behavior, through murder. Murder will split the soul, and the wizard who wants to make the Horcrux uses this destruction to seal off the broken soul fragments. Slughorn said when he arrived, he deserved to be a wizard with an ancient family heritage. It can be said that this kind of unpopular knowledge is right. Seal? But how? Voldemort asked a step further. But this time, Slughorn did not answer directly. He shook his head anxiously. There is a spell. Don't ask me, I don't know. Do I look like I've tried it? Am I like a murderer? No, sir, of course not, Riddle said busy. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to offend. In Ryan's eyes, this was a kind of temptation, and it was to find out Slughorn for the most critical issue next. Where is the bottom line of grace? Slughorn was appeased by his apology. Out of the habitual care of excellent students, it was also a kind of self-implication to himself. He said roughly, where, no offense, it's normal to be curious about these things. Talented wizards are always attracted to the magical side. Yes, sir, Riddle said. At this time he thought Slughorn might have been vigilant, so Tukyung emerged and asked the key question. But what I don't understand is, just out of curiosity, what I want to ask is, Is a Horcrux useful? Can a soul only be split once? Is it better to have more slices to make you stronger? For example, say, isn't 7 the most magical number? 7? My god, Tom! Slughorn exclaimed. 7. Wouldn't it be evil enough to kill someone anyway? Splitting the soul is evil enough. And divided into 7 pieces. Slughorn was completely upset, and he glared at Riddle. Ryan felt that he should be very regretful now, and he would be able to hear it from the back. Slughorn whispered. Of course, what we're talking about is hypothetical, isn't it? Just academic. The young Voldemort had already obtained what he wanted at this time, but he did not want others to know what he was doing today. So he appeased. Yes, sir, of course. The next thing is that Slug also told Voldemort not to divulge the conversation tonight. By this time he had realized something was wrong, and this goal coincides with Voldemort's goal. This can also explain why others do not know the reason for this memory. After watching the young Voldemort mouthful of assurance that he would not divulge this matter and leave the office at the same time, Dumbledore motioned to leave. I want to thank you for putting this puzzle into the most important piece. After he came out, Dumbledore said to Ryan the first time, it confirms my speculation and proves that everything I did before was correct, and the dawn of victory is ahead. Probably because Professor Dumbledore was too excited. His voice was much louder than usual. The old principals in the portraits on the wall were all awakened and began to eavesdrop on their conversations. A fat-nosed red wizard also took out the hearing aid. As a portrait, their usual life is very boring. Naturally, this opportunity to hear new stories will not be missed. You already know that Voldemort made a Horcrux to escape death, Dumbledore said, and what we saw today is the beginning of his Horcrux. Shortly after this inquiry, Voldemort produced his first soul. A young witch lost her life for this. At the same time Hagrid was expelled from school as his scapegoat, so just killed someone casually and killed his classmates. Harry opened his mouth in surprise. Harry, you are a kind child. But Voldemort is different. Dumbledore sitting behind the desk shook his head. Although I tried my best to get him on the right path. But you also saw it. I failed, and my education created a Dark Lord. It's not your fault. Lane said, education is a matter for both parties. It is very inappropriate to blame either the educator or the educated after the failure of the education. Those things that a mysterious person did at that time, I feel that any normal person will be alert to him. People are old. Sometimes they will remember the past, but these things have passed and passed. Dumbledore waved his hand. By the way, where did we just say? Oh, we just said that Voldemort began his process of making Horcruxes. This is why the first attack on Harry failed to die. So he hides his Horcrux somewhere, and a small piece of his soul is always safe? Harry asked. More than one small piece. I think you may have felt this before, Dumbledore said. You heard it just now. He especially wanted to know from Slughorn that if a wizard made multiple souls what will happen to the device, but he didn't get an answer in the end, because no one would cut his soul so many times before him. Dumbledore paused for a moment and glanced at Ryan and said, 4 years ago, I learned that Voldemort made his Horcrux. At that time Ryan accidentally obtained a strange notebook and gave it to me. I took it from inside. I found a piece of his soul, although that piece of soul is very weak, but I can be sure that it is a piece of Voldemort's soul. Even I can be sure that this is the first piece of soul he split out. www.mplnovel.com. Lane, Lee and Hermione opened their eyes at the same time. They didn't know about it before. Yes, I can only say that I was very lucky at that time, because this Horcrux is not only a prop to save the soul, but also a weapon. In theory, Slytherin monsters can be released. Fortunately, this one after something happened, Ryan's vigilance allowed us to lift the crisis all at once. It was just because I had just entered the magical world at that time, so I kept a little wary of everything. Lane said humbly, I think the mysterious man is still young at this time, so he made such a Horcrux. Prove that you are indeed a descendant of Slytherin. This analysis is very reasonable. Dumbledore nodded slightly. The purpose of the Horcrux is to safely seal out part of my soul, so that it is very foolish to expose it as a weapon, so I successfully wiped out this piece of soul. After talking, Dumbledore took out a glass bottle filled with ash. If you look closely, you can see that the ash should have been a book or a book. But such a Horcrux makes me feel greatly ominous. This means that he is likely to have made or planned to make more Horcruxes, so losing one will not be so dangerous. I don't want to believe this, but no other explanation seems to make sense. The worst news was confirmed in a year that the Triwizard Tournament was held. I researched something and obtained another Horcrux from Voldemort from the last residence of the Gunter family. Dumbledore said in a low voice, speaking. He always thinks that his longevity road is farther than anyone else's. I think this is where he has his confidence. Chapter 572. Secret. I'm curious why Voldemort chose such a way to obtain immortality. Ryan once told me that this method has many defects. After Professor Dumbledore told everyone that Voldemort had more than one Horcrux, Harry asked his own question. Any other way? Dumbledore glanced at Ryan and Hermione, but other methods did not meet his requirements. After finishing, Dumbledore straightened up and explained, know that Voldemort actually grew up in a mole world. Don't look at him as a successor of Slytherin. In fact, he didn't get it from his family. How many resources? Therefore, His sources of knowledge are very scattered, including the knowledge from the classroom professors and the supplementary lessons after class, as well as the knowledge he obtained from classmates by various means, and a part of self-study from the school library. In this case, Voldemort was not as knowledgeable as he was when he was a student. Ryan and they were all attracted by what Dumbledore said at this time, but the principal waved his hand to make a cup of hot tea and took a sip, then went on to say, so for Voldemort in his school days, he wanted to escape death. He can only choose the path of making Horcruxes. He is not unaware of the problems that may exist, but he thinks that he is a descendant of Slytherin, a chosen person. It will not be like those of the Horcruxes before. Fall into those problems like that. In addition, Voldemort is also a person who lacks a sense of security. He cannot allow his life to rest on something fragile. Just like if you use a magic stone, you need to keep drinking the elixir of life. What if a magic stone is damaged or the elixir is dropped? Voldemort needs a path to eternal life with the highest degree of freedom. It seems that there are only a few methods for the wizards to live forever. Ryan thought of this after hearing Dumbledore's words. The method he now masters comes from other worlds, and the method Hermione masters is that Ryan learns through learning. The methods of other worlds are combined with other methods of this world to guide her to obtain in an unexpected situation. In short, the world of Harry Potter does not have so many roads to eternal life. As Ryan thought, Dumbledore began to summarize. Now with this key memory, we are closer than anyone to the secret of how to destroy Voldemort. You have also heard him say just now, is it better to divide a few pieces to make you stronger? 7 isn't it the most magical number? Isn't 7 the most magical number? Yes, I think that dividing the soul into 7 pieces is attractive to Voldemort. 7 Horcruxes? Harry's face became very ugly, and several portraits on the wall also made a shock and indignation. In this way, they may be hidden, buried or invisible anywhere in the world. It's not that bad. Dumbledore smiled. First of all, Harry, not 7 Horcruxes, is 6. The 7th part of the soul, no matter what the situation, is still in his newly made body by black magic. This part of the soul was in exile for many years. It exists in a ghostly form, and you should have seen it in the first grade. Without it, he would not have himself. This 7th part of the soul will be the last object that the person who wants to kill Voldemort must attack in his body. That beast. Then he still has 6 Horcruxes. Harry asked anxiously. How can we find them? Actually, we have destroyed most of the Horcruxes, Dumbledore said, and then opened the drawer on the desk to take out one gold box after another. However, I personally think that it is better for you to sign an unbreakable vow with me now, because there is a mysterious connection between Voldemort and you, and we cannot know about the destruction of the Horcrux. No problem. Your consideration is indeed perfect. Harry reached out and held Dumbledore's hand together. I hope that the bad things in my 5th grade will not be repeated. Soon, under the testimony of Ryan, Professor Dumbledore and Harry signed an unbreakable vow to ensure that Harry would not divulge what he saw today, especially not to be peeped by Voldemort from his brain. Okay, this is what we have done before. After signing the unbreakable vow, Dumbledore opened the golden boxes one by one. After Voldemort's first Horcrux was destroyed, I realized that he made more than one Horcrux, so I started looking for it. Fortunately, as his teacher and enemy for a lifetime, I tried my best to understand Voldemort's past life and ran a lot of places to find his trail. Finally I traced some clues. The ring you see now is the second Horcrux I found. Next Dumbledore introduced the pendant box in turn, the crown and the gold cup. It's just that when he introduced it, it was a bit unclear about the source of Horcruxes, ignoring Ryan's contribution in finding and destroying these Horcruxes. Then, we just need to find the last Horcrux, right? Harry looked at the 5 Horcruxes on the table and turned with ease. But what will that Horcrux look like? If it is an old newspaper, an empty tin can, or broken leather boots, I think we will find it very difficult. No, what you think is the door key, Harry? The door key requires ordinary objects that are easily overlooked to avoid being taken by mistake, and Voldemort's Horcrux is definitely not like this, Dumbledore said seriously. As far as I know, he has always believed that the noble blood flowing in his body is superior to others. His pride, his superiority, his determination to occupy an amazing position in the history of magic will not allow him to put his soul on those inconspicuous things. So he will definitely find something that he deserves. His noble soul as a container for the soul. You can choose from these Horcruxes I have destroyed. See this tendency. Slytherin's relic, Ravenclaw's relic, Hufflepuff's relic. Will Voldemort's last Horcrux be Gryffindor's relic? Harry looked at the open boxes on the table, asked something. It shouldn't be. As far as I know, Gryffindor's only relics are now in the Hogwarts castle. Even in this office. Dumbledore stood up and walked away from the side, took off the branch cap from the desk, and then took a ruby-embedded sword from the cap. Sword of Gryffindor. Every real Gryffindor can take this sword from his hat. Then what do you think is Voldemort's last Horcrux? Harry gave up after thinking for a while and asked Dumbledore directly. I suspected a lot of things, but recently there was a vague inference. Dumbledore said, I think I know what the 6th Horcrux is. If I tell you frankly, I will treat that Snake Naginius behavior has been concerned for some time. I don't know what you will say. Snake? Harry looked surprised. Can living things also be used as Horcruxes? Ryan told me before that the Horcruxes in history are often just some magic props. It is a very great thing to use Horcruxes as Horcruxes. Risky behavior. Ryan is right. Dumbledore glanced at Ryan and said, because it's very risky to entrust a part of your soul to something that you can move and think about. www.mtlnovel.com. According to my guess, when Voldemort went to your house to kill you, he was going to make the last Horcrux according to the judgment of his previous behavior. Voldemort's murdered target was very special for him. You are certainly such a target. He believes that if he kills you, he will eliminate the danger indicated by the prophecy. He believes that he will be invincible. I think he must be planning to use your death as his last Horcrux. We all know that he failed. But when he made a comeback a few years ago, he killed an old mole with Nagini. Maybe he was thinking of turning this snake into his last Horcrux. Because the snake is a symbol of Slytherin, and this snake is exceptionally powerful. At the same time, his ability to control this snake is also extraordinary. So if we kill this snake, then we can lift Voldemort's so-called immortality and completely defeat him? Harry asked excitedly. Very good. A concise and accurate summary. This is how it is now. Dumbledore nodded approvingly. Without Horcrux, Voldemort is a mortal whose soul has been damaged. But don't forget that although the soul is broken beyond repair, his brain and magic are still intact. Even if there is no Horcrux, killing a wizard like Voldemort still needs extraordinary ability and skill. But I believe I will be able to defeat him, Harry said, clenching his fists here. Then I wish you all the things you said become reality. Well, I think it's too late, Harry. You can go back to rest first. Ryan, you and Hermione will stay. I have some recent comments about alchemy props need to be discussed with you, Dumbledore said. Chapter 573. Discussion and change. When the door of the principal's office was closed by Harry, Ryan asked Dumbledore, who was sitting across the table, in the sound of the rumbling and sinking stairs. Why didn't you tell Harry that truth? Tell Harry that he is the real Horcrux. Dumbledore leaned weakly on the back of a chair and rubbed his temples with his hands. But what's the point of this? I don't see any benefit other than making Harry depressed and easier for Voldemort to invade his soul. So that's why you just said vaguely that Nagini was a Horcrux. The reason why you can judge Nagini is a Horcrux is because Harry used to see through Nagini's eyes in 5th grade. It's an attack. This should be a manifestation of the mysterious soul fragments in the Horcrux resonating with each other. Ryan said. Yes. Dumbledore nodded and admitted this. Although Harry has that prophecy on him, I don't think he has to act like a puppet to follow that prophecy. To know that so many prophecies in the prophecy hall, not everyone has been fulfilled. But Professor, the first half of this prediction has been fulfilled. Hermione raised a question in her heart. Yes, but that was not doomed, just because Voldemort made a big mistake. He acted according to Professor Trelawney's prediction. He killed Harry's parents, and thus gained Harry's hatred, and Harry's mother gave her child the magical protection that Voldemort could not penetrate. As a dark devil, Voldemort was always looking for the person who would challenge him, and he acted immediately after hearing the prophecy. As a result, he not only handpicked the person most likely to get rid of him, and gave him a particularly lethal weapon. Are you talking about the power of revenge? Ryan asked. No, hatred is just a double-edged sword covered with poison, and it will hurt yourself while letting people reach their goals. The real power that Harry gains is love. It is love that brings him in contact with Voldemort through his soul. After a long time, he still maintained his original heart. To know that Harry could see Voldemort's inner world at that time, it was the ability of countless Death Eaters willing to use his own switch. But Harry never showed any desire to follow Voldemort. There is no desire for a second. This is love protecting his heart. So I think that his inner tenacity is far greater than others' imagination, and no further help is needed to strengthen him. So I don't think it's necessary to tell him that he is the reality of Voldemort's Horcrux. This thing has no meaning except to increase his psychological pressure. The current Dumbledore is completely different from the original text. At this time, the original text was due to the fact that Dumbledore had touched the trap that Voldemort had placed on the ring before, and the task of cleaning up all Horcruxes was far away. So he hoped that Harry could grow up as quickly as possible to take over the banner of resistance in his hands. So he used various methods to inspire Harry at the time, and also left clues to let Harry know that he was the last Horcrux. But now it is different. Most of Voldemort's Horcruxes have been destroyed, and Dumbledore himself has not suffered fatal injuries. For a great wizard like Dumbledore, even if he is now more than 100 years old, it seems that there will be no problem at all for more than a decade. Under such circumstances, Dumbledore was naturally not as anxious as before. I think I can still stick to it, so there is no need for Harry's weak wizard to stand on the front line against Voldemort, Professor Dumbledore said, looking tired. Of course, because of your strength, I think I have to need your help at this time. This is the greater the legendary power, the greater the responsibility, Ryan thought. Now this situation should be the biggest disadvantage of looking for Deng Dangdang as a shield. He could not refuse some reasonable requests made by Dumbledore. It's nothing. Eliminating the mysterious people is also our goal, Hermione said. Our origins are destined to prevent us from living in peace with him in a world. This war can only be ended when our side falls. Yeah, this will be a brutal war. Dumbledore sighed. Probably because today is more suitable for chatting. The principal did not end the conversation but continued. Ryan, what do you think today after learning that Voldemort divided his soul into 7 pieces? It's a crazy idea to divide my soul into 7 pieces, Ryan said after listening to Professor Dumbledore's question. As you said, mysterious people are not systematic in their education, and he does not know much of the common sense in the magic world. At the same time, because of his pride and arrogance, he has disdained to ask his own questions to others. Even if he knows I did something wrong and would not admit mistakes, but thought that I was the one who was chosen by nature, and would do a great cause that no one else could do. But our trouble is that from the current results, he should have achieved my own goal has accomplished what is impossible in the eyes of others. Yes, no one can divide his soul into so many pieces and keep himself alive. From this perspective, Voldemort did succeed, Dumbledore said. So what do you think other than this? I think the brutality of our war may exceed everyone's imagination, Lane said slowly. Why do you think so? Dumbledore suddenly raised interest. Because he is now difficult to be considered human from any angle, Ryan said one of his conjectures. He was born because of the obsessive agent, and the natural soul has defects. After dividing his soul into 8, the problems on the soul have been repeatedly superimposed. He has lost the emotion of normal people. In the previous resurrection process, he gave up his connection with the original body and made a black magic creation as his body. In this case, he is actually no longer human from the soul to the body. And then, Dumbledore straightened up www.mtlnovel.com. People who normally wage war will have a goal, and then everything will move around this goal. For example, the goal of Grindelwald was to enable the wizard to become the ruler of this world. Therefore, whether he is killing, speaking or breaking the secrecy law, he actually revolves around this core. And other people can also grasp this law. What to do or not to do. Minimize damage as much as possible. But the mysterious man is different. He has no core goal other than an empty blood supremacy slogan. This also means that he can attack at any time and any place without any warning. In the face of this madman with powerful force, I think we may pay an unprecedented price. This thing you said is indeed very likely, because as far as I know, Voldemort's punishment of his opponent after the resurrection is much greater than before, and even occasionally a small problem he will punish with a heart curse. I think we should really be more vigilant in this regard. Dumbledore nodded and said, then he looked at the clock in the corner. It's very late. I think you should go back to rest. By the way, I hope you can work out a way to safely take out the Voldemort soul in Harry's skull. We will do our best. Ryan had stood up at this time to leave, but he seemed to have thought of something to Dumbledore. If possible, I hope I can catch Nagini alive. Because of this, it can be tested on it, then the chance of successfully removing that soul for Harry will be greatly increased. I know. Dumbledore nodded. I hope everything will go smoothly. Chapter 574, Report 1 Paragraph. The conversation at night made everyone very tired, so Ryan and the 3 of them returned to their dorms and went to bed as soon as they returned to the common room. But the content of the evening conversation is generally good news, especially for Harry, who doesn't know part of the situation. In the curse class the next morning, Ryan saw Harry whispering to Ron in a low voice. I sometimes feel that ignorance is indeed a kind of happiness. I think our strength is at least to step forward to complete the commission of Professor Dumbledore. Hermione said to Ryan using the Phoenix brand. At least you can wait until you make Alchemist Stone. I call that thing the Virgin Rose. Ryan corrected, and then he continued. In fact, we are now able to perform such operations at the current level, except that the probability of success is at most only half. At this time, we cannot bet the probability of our friends' lives. You're right. Anyway, the situation doesn't look critical now, so we can wait. Here, Hermione's elbow accidentally touched Ryan, and as a result, Ryan's wand twisted and a lot of petals fell from the sky. Be careful. Ryan hurriedly lowered his wand before reaching out to shake off some petals that fell on Hermione's shoulder and head. This is much better than last time. The last time I flicked the wrong wand was the Frobber caterpillar. It sounds terrible. Hermione frowned, as if thinking of those disgusting slimy bugs. Then she reached out and picked a petal from Ryan's head. It can only be said that our luck was good this time. Okay, you two, there is something to talk about after class. Flitwick came swaying, interrupting the conversation between the two of them. Because he was a small man, Ryan had not seen him before. It's class time now. Speak less, do more work. Now please show me what's in class today. Ryan and Hermione raised their wands at the same time and waved at the vinegar in the flask in front of them. The liquid in both flasks turned to a deep red color, and a smell of wine came out of the bottle. Good job. Flitwick nodded. But you'd better keep quiet in class. After all, others. Before the words were finished, a loud explosion came from behind, and everyone shrank their necks. Flitwick calmly took off his hat and shook the glass on the top of the hat. Then Ron said after watching the situation, "I think your homework should be practiced today." It was a rare common free time after the spell session, but upon returning to the common room, Ryan and Hermione discussed what was recorded on the parchment. "Did Professor Flitwick just arrange the paperwork?" Ron asked dumbfoundedly at the scene. "Shouldn't it?" Harry scratched his messy hair. "Maybe they are writing something else. Anyway, the two of them usually bury themselves in a lot of books. I think they write a week. The things we write about in a month. Don't worry, I'm not doing my homework now. Just writing a shopping list and let Fred and George help us buy something." Ryan raised his head and said to Ron after writing the last pen on the parchment, "Are these things related to the Order of the Phoenix?" Harry asked after lowering his voice after looking at the students around him. "It's okay to say." Ryan put away the parchment and stuffed it into the envelope, then wrote the address of the Weasley joke shop in purple ink on the envelope. "It was mainly because yesterday I saw that the effect of Harry's use of magical agents was great, so I decided to purchase the materials and do it myself. I think if there is a magical agent, everyone should be more likely to survive the battle with the Death Eaters." "You are indeed amazing." After listening to Ryan's words, Harry and Ron were both startled. Harry had previously looked for the method of healing agents from advanced potion making. Slowly cook it in a month, and the cost of raw materials is amazing. Few people have the financial resources and level to brew this potion. After all, everyone fighting the Death Eaters and even the mysterious people needs to take great psychological pressure and risk their lives. People like me who do not fight on the front line can do everything they can to increase the survival probability of everyone," Ryan said with a smile. "Ryan, you have done too much for everyone. Compared with you, I think my so-called savior is simply incompetent," Harry said and pulled a small bottle out of his pocket. "By the way, yesterday I took only a small sip of the psychic agent, and I will give you the rest. Originally, I wanted to take another sip of the agent to the house where I asked. I don't think it's a good idea. Don't waste this good thing in vain." Hermione took the small bottle of potions directly from Harry's hand and let Ryan collect it. "There is a limit to how much luck can help you. Judging from the task assigned to you by Professor Dumbledore, Slughorn is not unconvincing. You just didn't find the right way before, so you drank. Fooling the agent is naturally useful, but the powerful magic connected to the Hogwarts castle in the request room is not so good for you to break through. The rest of this bottle of magical agent may be saved for those members of the Phoenix who are fighting on the front line." "How many lives?" "Well, you're right." Harry shrugged helplessly, but Ryan, who was present, knew that he hadn't given up to figure out what Malfoy was doing. The gentleman slipped away, and the Gryffindor Quidditch players discussed tactics or desperate training every day, because they now have to win 300 points to win the Quidditch trophy. But this also won a new order for Ryan. His new set of incense has received a large number of orders. According to Harry, after using these incense, the previous players were too anxious or even unpredictable nervous vomiting. The situation has basically disappeared. And the best thing is, because incense became popular in school, Madame Pomfrey found Ryan for safety reasons and asked him to submit a sample for her to test www.mplnovel.com, and the test result was very good. Pomfrey not only did Mrs. consider this product to be a magical product beneficial to the human body, she even ordered a batch for the school hospital. This made a good advertisement for this kind of incense. Even under Ryan's suggestion, the Weasley twins paired the new incense with the sleep-aid incense made by Ryan last year and the new Ningshin incense together for sale. And the advertises that the spirit of incense and incense is good during the day, and the incense is good at night. Although such advertising words are a bit vulgar, they can be seen at a glance. Soon the first book club meeting in early June began. All the members of the book club gathered together, but several members added new wounds. Ever since Ryan taught them the magic for fighting, everyone practiced with great care. Naturally some injuries are difficult to avoid. "Navi, I repeat, you really don't need to work so hard," Ryan warned when he looked at the large slap burn mark on Neville's left arm. "Even if we have a potion to completely heal the wound, the pain after being burned is inevitable." "Thank you for your concern, Ryan." Neville smiled. "But I can't relax. I know I'm not smart, so if I want to accomplish what I should do in this war, I have to work harder than others." "Well, if this is your choice." Ryan thought about it and did not continue to persuade, but just stood on the stage and announced that all members of the book club can buy enough at the cost price in the Weasley joke shop self-healing medicine. "May everyone be able to survive this war without incident." Ryan, who was cheering, said silently in his heart. Chapter 575, Promote. In the following exercises, the members of the book club showed the results of recent training through magic demonstrations. Ryan feels that everyone present has made great progress during this time, and has mastered the real combat method. The only shortcoming is the lack of actual combat experience. However, there is really no way to train such things as actual combat experience. Ryan can only find other ways to help everyone as much as possible. So for the rest of the time, Ryan and Hermione took turns in one-on-one combat exercises with the members of the book club in order to try to fill everyone's shortcomings. In addition to one-on-one combat practice, everyone also practiced teamwork of 2 to 3 people. Learn to cover each other with comrades. and prevent the enemy from attacking the comrades' backs during the battle. After the curfew bell sounded, the members of the book club were tired but excited and left the classroom in twos and threes. Ryan and Hermione naturally landed in the final packing. When everyone left the classroom, Hermione asked, "I feel you are anxious. Can you tell me what happened recently?" "According to my judgment, the intensity of the war is likely to increase greatly in recent months, because Lupin told me last week that on the one hand, the wizards of southeastern Europe who entered recently, especially those in Greece and Turkey, have greatly increased. The wizard at the border control told him that many of these wizards were black wizards. On the other hand, there have been fewer inexplicable disappearances and attacks recently than before." "Isn't it because Rose Crystal destroyed the Dementor last time that they flinched?" Hermione asked curiously. "No," Ryan shook his head. "Rose Crystal destroying the Dementors can only contain the disorderly attacks of the Death Eaters, and the attacks directed by the mysterious person will not be reduced accordingly. For the dark wizard like the mysterious person, you think he is the kind of consideration other people in the mood and safe?" "You mean, the power of the mysterious person is increasing now, but their actions are decreasing?" Hermione showed a thoughtful expression. "You are right. This is not normal. It seems that they are really planning a big action. So now they will lurking and accumulating power. It should look like this." Ryan nodded his head. The incident at the end of last year had already warned Ryan. According to the inertia of the plot and the needs of everyone, many things must happen. However, when these things happen, they may not follow the process in the original plot. For example, Malfoy is indeed repairing the disappearing cabinet as in the original text, but this year Professor Dumbledore is intact, and at the same time, it is impossible to run to the center of the Black Lake hidden in the cave to drink the poison. Under such circumstances, Ryan felt that the attack in the original text was likely to appear in front of everyone in a completely different way, so he recently strengthened the monitoring at the door of the request room and the corridor, so as not to be too big fork. In the following days, everything was calm, and Ryan and Hermione stepped up to improve their strength. Until one day before dinner, while he was studying the rune application in the alchemy laboratory, Ryan suddenly felt that the red sphere of light on his brain began to shrink and slowly beat like a heart. "Ryan, what's wrong?" Hermione, who was making a potion while aware of Ryan's fault, asked aloud. "I think it's my breakthrough time," Ryan said to Hermione with a smile after closing her eyes and feeling quietly for a while. "It's just amazing." Hermione waved her fists firmly in front of her. "Let's start now." "Well," Ryan nodded, then stepped into the Wanji grocery store with Hermione. "Just entered here." Ryan walked to the alchemy array floating above the four small representing the wind, water and fire. He felt an unprecedented sense of closeness from this alchemy. Ryan immediately infiltrated the spirit into this alchemy array and began to manipulate the movement of the energy above. Soon, the four small began to vanish in accordance with the range of Ryan's heartbeat. Hermione sat quietly and felt the power change in this small space. In the following week, Ryan devoted himself to the control of the energy of this alchemy array in addition to going to other worlds for a simple meal and washing. In Hermione's perception, Ryan resonated with the energy in front of him. After the end of the week, Ryan's resonance with the magic circle finally reached its peak. This also means that the most important process in the production of Our Lady of Roses is about to begin. The next is the soul, preferably the soul of the dead intelligent creature. Lane silently thought of starting to take out one grey ball after another, each of which contained 10,000 wisdom of the same level as humans. The soul of the creature. In the process of making Our Lady of Roses and feeling the rules, except for a small amount of time, Ryan does not need to be silent at all times, and even he feels that chatting with Hermione will help him maintain a good attitude. So after understanding what the grey ball is through her own perception, Hermione confirmed that Ryan can speak and ask her own question at this time. "These souls, where did they come from?" "All the souls here are related to me when they died." Ryan suddenly wanted to make a joke, so he said in a low voice. But Hermione did not react as excitedly as she had imagined, but looked at him with a smile. Her eyes seemed to say, "I don't know what kind of person you are." "Okay, that's it." Ryan smiled after discovering that Hermione wasn't taken aback, and quickly smiled and introduced the smile seriously. "These are mainly from the three worlds, and the least part comes from the looted marauders and mutants of the radiation world. The second most comes from the world of the Song of Ice and Fire, which is killed in war of the nomadic people, the army of slave masters, and the spirits of pirates. The most part comes from the Moto and Misty Mountains in the world of the Lord of the Rings, which are the dirty souls of some goblins and half-orcs. I spent a lot of time to purify these souls." "So, this is the soul of 1,000,000 intelligent creatures?" Hermione asked the little grey around him. "Does the magic stone, or Madonna Rose, require so many souls?" "In fact, a minimum of 300,000 is enough." Ryan spread his hand. "However, if it is 300,000, the risk is very high. Whether it is Teacher Liuzan or Nicole May, I estimate that the souls they use are around 500,000, and they are all made up of the Black Deaths that have swept through Europe." "Those souls." "So, you have gathered 1,000,000 souls without the possible moral guilt of the two of them." Hermione said. "It can be said that this is very conducive to my inner peace. But in some ways, I may be more cruel than the two of them. because the death of these 1 million souls is all about me." Lane whispered at the same time Hermione was keenly aware that his will seemed to be sinking. "I don't think so." Hermione hugged Ryan from the back when she found something wrong, and then said in a decisive tone, "Because I know that if these evil creatures do not die, there will be more truly innocent creatures who will die." "Thank you." Ryan turned to grab Hermione's hand and kissed her gently. After the two people's lips parted, Ryan looked at Hermione's eyes and said, "In the situation just now, the fluctuations in magic have magnified my mental fluctuations. In fact, my condition was a little dangerous a few minutes ago. Thank you for putting I pull back. Then I can start the most important step,